The council forced me to shift at trial to prove I was worthless in front of the entire pack. They wanted to watch me fail and be cast out forever. I closed my eyes, felt my bones break, and shifted. A pure white Luna wolf stood where they expected nothing, and the entire council fell to their knees. Chapter 1: The Colorless Daughter. The morning Isa turned 18. Her mother didn't come to wake her. It should have been a celebration. The day every wolf in Crescent Valley waited for since birth. The day when the shift would finally come. When the wolf inside would break free and claim its place in the pack hierarchy. Isla had dreamed of this morning for years, imagined her mother's proud smile, her father's firm hand on her shoulder, the pack gathering to witness her transformation. Instead, she woke alone to silence, and the acrid smell of disappointment that had seeped into every corner of their small cottage at the edge of Packlands. Isa pushed herself up from the thin mattress, her long silver hair, not blonde, not white, but that strange colorless shade that caught light like moonlight water falling across her face. She'd always hated her hair. In a pack where golden locks signified strength and dark hair meant cunning. Her silver marked her as other, different, potentially defective Isla. Her mother's voice cut through the morning quiet like a blade. The council has summoned you. Get dressed. Now, no happy birthday, no warmth, just duty and dread. Isa's hands trembled as she pulled on the simple gray dress her mother had left hanging on the door. Not the ceremonial white gown worn by daughters on their shifting day, but something plain, forgettable. The message was clear. Don't expect celebration. When she emerged from her room, her mother stood by the door, arms crossed, her beautiful face, the face that had won her father's heart 20 years ago, twisted into something between pity and disgust. Your sister shifted into a golden wolf, her mother said quietly. Strong, fast, beautiful. The pack celebrated for 3 days. She paused, her eyes scanning Isla from head to toe. Whatever happens today, try not to embarrass us more than necessary. The words landed like physical blows. Isla had heard variations of this speech her entire life. But today, on the day that should have been hers, they cut deeper than ever. "I'll do my best, Mother," Isa whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. "Your best," her mother laughed, bitter and cold. "Your best got you banned from training after you couldn't keep up with the other pups. Your best got you relegated to kitchen duty while your sister leads hunts. Your best has been a disappointment for 18 years. Isla, perhaps today the goddess will show mercy and grant you at least a wolf that can carry its own weight." Isa bit her lip hard enough to taste copper. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of the woman who had stopped calling her daughter and started calling her the colorless 1 year ago. The walk to council grounds took 20 minutes through the heart of pack territory. Every step felt like a funeral march. Pack members stopped their morning routines to watch her pass, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt, and a few with something worse. Pity. "That's the Thornwood girl," someone whispered. "The defective one. I heard she can't even link with the pack mind properly. Something wrong with her connection. My cousin said she might not have a wolf at all. Can you imagine? 18 years and nothing inside but human weakness." Isla kept her eyes forward, her spine straight. She'd learned early that showing pain only made them hungrier for more. The council ground sprawled before her like an ancient coliseum, a massive circular arena carved from stone that had witnessed centuries of pack trials, ceremonies, and judgments. Today it was already full. Hundreds of wolves lined the tiered seating, all gathered to witness what would surely be a spectacle: the weak daughter's inevitable humiliation. At the center of the arena floor stood the council table, a crescent-shaped stone structure where the 5 most powerful wolves in Crescent Valley sat in judgment, and at the head of that table, radiating authority like heat from a forge, sat Alpha Kieran Blackmore. Ila's breath caught despite herself. Kieran was everything an alpha should be: tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see straight through to your soul. He was only 25, but he'd already proven himself in countless battles and negotiations. Every unmated female in the pack and several mated ones watched him with barely concealed desire. Next to him sat her sister. Celeste Thornwood had been beautiful before her shift. After transforming into a golden wolf at 16, she'd become devastating. Now at 20, she sat at the alpha's right hand as his betrothed, her golden hair cascading over shoulders draped in white silk, her perfect face arranged in an expression of practiced sympathy that didn't reach her cold blue eyes. Isa Thornswood. Alpha Kieran's voice boomed across the arena, silencing the crowd's murmurs. You stand before the council on your 18th birthday to prove your worth to this pack. As is tradition, you will shift and your wolf will be evaluated for strength, size, and capability. Isa's throat went dry. This wasn't how shifting ceremonies usually went. Most wolves were allowed to shift in private with family present and then presented to the pack afterward, forcing her to shift in front of everyone to be evaluated like livestock. This was deliberately cruel. Alpha Kieran. Isla found her voice somehow, though it shook. Traditionally, first shifts happen in private. The transition can be unpredictable, painful. Traditionally, Celeste spoke up, her melodious voice carrying false sweetness. Wolves with strong bloodlines shift in private because their transformations are sacred moments of power. But you, dear sister, have shown no signs of power your entire life. The council has decided that public evaluation is necessary to determine if you possess a wolf at all, or if you're simply, she paused, letting cruel anticipation build due human. The crowd erupted in gasps and excited whispers. To be declared human in a werewolf pack was a fate worse than death exile at minimum, or slavery to wolves who would use you as they pleased. The council has made its decision. Councillor Thorne announced, his weathered face showing no emotion. Isa Thornwood, you will shift now. Prove your wolf exists, or be cast out as human waste masquerading as pack. Isa's legs nearly buckled. Around her, the crowd was a sea of eager faces. Wolves hungry for entertainment, for someone weaker to mock, for confirmation that they were better, stronger, more deserving of the goddess's gifts. She looked up at Kieran, hoping for what? Mercy, fairness. But the alpha's face remained impassive, carved from stone. If he had any objection to this public humiliation, he showed no sign. Strip, Celeste commanded, standing now, her voice sharp as broken glass. Or do you need help with that too? Perhaps we should summon the children to assist you since you perform so well at their level. Laughter rippled through the arena, cruel, hungry laughter that fed on suffering. Isa's hands moved to the buttons of her gray dress. Each one felt like removing a layer of dignity of self. But what choice did she have? Refuse and be declared human immediately. Comply and face whatever humiliation awaited when her wolf, if she even had one, proved small and weak. The dress fell to the ground. She stood in the center of the arena in only her undergarments. Silver hair, covering what little modesty remained, while hundreds of pack members stared and whispered and judged. Now, Alpha Kieran said quietly, but his voice carried to every corner of the arena. Call your wolf shift. Show us what you are. Isa closed her eyes and reached deep inside herself to that place where every wolf kept their beast. She'd felt it before. Fleeting touches of something wild and powerful that vanished before she could grasp it. Every other wolf described the shift as natural as breathing, as easy as opening a door that was already unlocked. For Isla, it had always felt like clawing at a wall with bare hands. Please, she begged silently, please be there. Please be strong enough to prove them wrong. The first crack of bone was agony. Isla screamed as her body began to break and reform, as her spine curved and lengthened, as her hands twisted into paws, and her face elongated into a muzzle. The shift that should take seconds stretched into agonizing minutes. Every bone snapping, every muscle tearing and reknitting, every nerve ending on fire. The crowd's laughter died into uncertain silence, because something was wrong. The shift wasn't stopping. Isila's wolf was growing and growing and growing when the transformation finally finished. Isa stood on 4 legs in the center of the arena, panting from exertion and pain. But she wasn't looking up at the council anymore. She was looking down at them. Her wolf was massive, easily 3 times the size of a normal werewolf, towering over even the largest alpha males, and her fur was pure, pristine, luminous white. Not silver, not gray, not cream, white like starlight made solid. White like the moon itself had taken wolf form. White like legends whispered around fires on moonless nights. Legends of the white Luna, the rarest wolf blessed directly by the moon goddess herself. The arena had gone completely silent. Isla turned her great head to look at the council, at her sister, whose face had drained of all color, at Alpha Kiran, who had risen to his feet, his expression somewhere between awe and terror. Then, from the eldest counselor, ancient grandmother Mora, who rarely spoke, came a single word, whispered, but carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent arena. Impossible. Chapter 2. The White Wolf's Curse. The silence lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Wolves throughout the arena began shouting, some falling to their knees in instinctive submission, others scrambling backward in terror. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of shock, fear, and disbelief that crashed over Isla like a physical wave. Her massive white wolf stood frozen in the center of the arena, confused and overwhelmed. Through her wolf's eyes, everything was sharper, clearer, more intense. She could smell the terror rolling off the crowd in acrid waves. She could hear hearts hammering in chests 50 yards away. She could feel the power thrumming through her enormous body like lightning contained in flesh, and she could see her sister's face twisted in naked hatred. Silence. Alpha Kiran's command cut through the pandemonium like a blade. His alpha authority slammed into the crowd, forcing submission, demanding obedience. Gradually, the noise died down to frightened whispers. Kiran descended from the council platform, his movements slow and deliberate, his eyes never leaving Isla's massive form. Even his considerable size, large for an alpha, looked almost childlike next to her wolf. "Shift back," he commanded, his voice steady. But Isla could smell the unease beneath his controlled exterior. "Now, Isa, shift back to human form." Isa tried. She reached for that internal switch that should return her to human skin. But her wolf, finally free after 18 years of being locked away, didn't want to let go. The beast inside her was reeing in its size, its strength, the way hundreds of wolves who had mocked her now cowered in fear. No, her wolf seemed to growl inside her mind. "They wanted to see me. Let them look. She can't control it," someone shouted from the crowd. "The white wolf is feral. It's a curse," another voice cried. "The colorless daughter has brought a cursed wolf into our pack. Shift back." Kiran's alpha command was stronger this time, laced with power that should have forced any wolf to comply. It pressed against Isla like a weight. But her wolf merely lowered its massive head and met his eyes a direct challenge that made several council members gasp. In wolf hierarchy, holding an alpha's gaze was an act of defiance, of dominance. Isla's wolf held it effortlessly by the goddess. Grandmother Mora breathed, her ancient voice carrying an edge of fear Isla had never heard from the unshakable elder. "She's not submitting to alpha authority. The white wolf answers to no one, then she's a threat." Celestia's voice rang out sharp and clear. She'd composed herself now, her beautiful face arranged in an expression of concerned authority. "Alpha Kiran, you must see my sister cannot control her wolf. A beast that size, that power, with no submission to pack hierarchy. She could kill us all." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Fear was rapidly transforming into hostility. Isla could smell it in the air. The shift from shock to anger, from awe to threat assessment. She needed to shift back now. "Please," Isla begged her wolf internally. Please let me shift back. They're going to kill us if we don't. Her wolf's presence in her mind was vast, ancient, and utterly unmoved by the threat. But finally, perhaps sensing Isla's genuine terror, it relented. The shift back was faster, but no less painful. Bones cracking and reforming, body shrinking, fur receding. When it was over, Isa collapsed naked on the cold stone floor of the arena, gasping for breath. Her silver hair plastered to her skin with sweat. Someone, a female servant she didn't recognize, hurried forward with a blanket and wrapped it around her shaking shoulders. The small kindness nearly broke Isla's composure entirely. Explain. Alpha Karen stood over her, his shadow blocking out the morning sun. Explain how the weakest member of our pack, the girl who couldn't keep up with pup training, who showed no signs of wolf presence for 18 years, suddenly shifts into a white Luna of legend. Isa tried to speak, but her throat was raw from screaming. She swallowed hard and tried again. I don't know, Alpha. I've always felt my wolf, but she was distant, locked away. I thought I was defective, I thought. You thought correctly, Celeste interrupted, descending gracefully from the platform to stand beside Kieran. She looked perfect beside him, golden to his dark beauty matching power, the ideal alpha pair. Something is clearly wrong with her. Normal wolves bond with their humans from birth. They grow together, shift together naturally. This aberration, this thing that forced its way out after being locked away. It's not natural, it's corrupted. The white wolf is sacred, Grandmother Mora said firmly. Though Isla noticed the elder's hands were trembling. It's spoken of in our oldest texts. A white Luna appears once every 1,000 years, blessed by the moon goddess herself, to know to bring great change. Counselor Thorne finished, his voice heavy with meaning. Great change, not necessarily good change. Mora, the last white Luna recorded in our histories was 500 years ago. She united the wearing packs by drowning them in blood. Thousands died in the war she started. Ice flooded Isa's veins. I would never. You can't even control your shift, Celeste said sweetly, crouching down to Ila's level with false concern that made Ila's skin crawl. You challenged our alpha's authority without even meaning to. What happens next time, dear sister? What happens when you get angry, when you lose control? Will that massive beast tear through our pack because you can't reign in your own power? Isa's mind raced. Everything Celeste was saying was technically true. She hadn't been able to control her wolf, hadn't been able to shift back immediately, had met Kieran's eyes and challenge without intending to ut. But the way her sister was framing it, turning her confusion into malice, her struggle into threat. The council must decide, Kieran said heavily, and Isla's heart sank at the resignation in his voice. He'd already made up his mind. Isa Thornwood, you are hereby charged with harboring an unstable and potentially dangerous wolf. Until we can determine the extent of the threat you pose to this pack, you will be. Wait. A new voice cut through the proceedings, young, male, and unexpected. A wolf pushed through the crowd, and Isa's battered heart lifted slightly. Finn Riverside, one of the few pack members who had never mocked her, who had always offered a smile when they crossed paths. He was a few years older than her, a strong fighter, but not particularly high-ranking. His speaking out now could cost him dearly. Alpha Kieran, Finn said, dropping to one knee in proper submission, but keeping his voice steady. With respect, we're condemning Isla for something she can't control. She was forced to shift publicly for the first time in front of hundreds under threat of being declared human. Is it any surprise that her wolf reacted defensively? Her wolf refused alpha authority, Counselor Thorne stated flatly. That alone is grounds for execution or exile. Her wolf is larger than the alpha. Finn pressed on, and Isla wanted to scream at him to stop, to not risk himself for her. Hierarchy is based on strength, is it not? Perhaps her wolf didn't refuse submission. Perhaps it simply doesn't recognize dominance from those weaker than itself. The implications of his words hit the crowd like a thunderbolt. If Isla's wolf was stronger than the alpha, if size and power determined hierarchy, then technically she should be. That's treason, Celeste hissed, her beautiful face ugly with rage. You're suggesting she should be alpha. This defective girl who couldn't even I'm suggesting. Finn interrupted another breach of protocol that made several wolves gasp that were operating on fear instead of law. The old laws are clear. Any wolf who manifests new power must be given time to learn control. 3 moon cycles of training, supervised before any judgment is passed. That's been pack law for centuries. Grandmother Mora nodded slowly. The boy speaks truth. The old laws do mandate a training period for difficult shifts or newly manifested abilities. The old laws didn't account for white lunas, Counselor Thorne argued. They didn't account for power that could destroy our pack. Then change the laws, Finn said simply. Call a pack vote. Let everyone decide if they want to abandon centuries of tradition because of fear. But until then, law is law. Isla deserves her 3 moon cycles. The crowd erupted again, this time split between those who supported following the old laws and those who wanted Isla dealt with immediately. Isa watched, numb with exhaustion and shock as her fate was debated like she wasn't even there. Finally, Alpha Kieran raised his hand for silence. His dark eyes swept the arena, reading the mood of his pack, calculating the political cost of each decision. When his gaze finally landed on Isla, she saw no warmth there, only cold assessment. The old laws will be honored, he announced, and Isa's chest loosened slightly with relief. Isa Thornwood will be given 3 moon cycles to learn control of her wolf. However, his voice hardened, given the unprecedented size and power of her beast. She will be confined to the Luna's keep during this period. She will train under guard, isolated from the pack, and at the end of 3 months, she will demonstrate control. If she cannot, he paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Then the council will have no choice but to declare her wolf too dangerous to exist alongside the pack. The Luna's Keep, Ela whispered. The Luna's Keep was a stone tower at the furthest edge of Packland's ancient, isolated and traditionally used to house the alpha's mate during her pregnancy. Using it as a prison was, you should be grateful, Celeste said coldly, but Isla caught the flash of satisfaction in her sister's eyes. The Luna's Keep is more comfortable than the dungeons. Unless you'd prefer those instead. Isla shook her head mutely. Then it's settled, Kieran declared. Isa Thornwood will be escorted to the Luna's Keep immediately. She is forbidden from shifting without explicit permission from the guards. She is forbidden from contacting other pack members. She is forbidden from leaving the keep grounds until her trial period ends. Guards, take her. 2 large male wolves stepped forward, their hands rough as they hauled Isla to her feet. The blanket slipped, and she clutched at it desperately, trying to maintain some shred of dignity as they dragged her across the arena floor. The crowd parted before them like water, wolves pressing back against the stone seats to avoid even coming close to her. Some faces showed pity. Most showed relief that the threat was being removed. And a few, a terrible few, showed hunger, like predators watching wounded prey being taken to a cage. As she was pulled past the council platform, Isa's eyes met her sister's one last time. Celeste smiled beautiful, cold, and victorious, and Isla understood with terrible clarity. This had been the plan all along. Her sister had orchestrated this entire spectacle. The public shift, the forced humiliation, the framework that would transform Isla's greatest strength into her greatest curse. The colorless daughter had finally proven her worth, and her sister was going to make her pay for it. The guards dragged her out of the arena, past the jeering crowds, and through Packlands toward her new prison. And in the back of Isa's mind, her massive white wolf stirred. Patient, powerful, and waiting. They think they've caged us. Her wolf seemed to whisper, let them think that. Let them believe we're contained for now. Chapter 3. The Luna's Cage. The Luna's Keep rose from the landscape like a forgotten monument. A circular stone tower, 4 stories tall, its gray walls covered in creeping ivy and moss. It sat at the very edge of Crescent Valley territory, where packlands met wild forest, isolated enough that screams wouldn't carry to the main settlement. Isla stumbled as the guard shoved her through the heavy wooden door, still wrapped in nothing but the thin blanket. Her bare feet scraped against cold stone floors that hadn't seen proper cleaning in years. Dust motes danced in shafts of pale light filtering through narrow windows. Top floor. The larger guard grunted a wolf named Garrett, whose contempt for her radiated like heat. That's where you'll stay. There's basic furniture, a chamber pot, and water. Food will be brought twice a day. You'll eat what you're given when you're given it, and training. Isa's voice came out smaller than she intended. Alpha, Kieran said I would train to control my wolf. When does that start? The guards exchanged glances and something cruel flickered in their eyes. Training? Garrett laughed a harsh barking sound. Right. Well, be sure to schedule that. Now move. They forced her up a winding stone staircase, each step narrower and more worn than the last. By the time they reached the top floor, Isa's legs were shaking from exhaustion. The shift had drained her more than she'd realized. The room they shoved her into was small, maybe 15 feet across, with a single narrow bed, a wooden chair, a small table, and a bucket in the corner that she assumed was the chamber pot Garrett had mentioned. One window, barely wider than her shoulders, looked out over the forest. Iron bars had been fitted across it. Welcome home, Garrett sneered, tossing a bundle of gray fabric at her feet. Rough spun clothing worn and patched. Get dressed. Can't have you prancing around naked, tempting the guards. Though I doubt you could tempt anyone colorless. The other guard, younger, with nervous eyes, actually flinched at Garrett's cruelty, but he said nothing. As they backed out of the room, the door slammed shut. A heavy bolt slid into place from the outside, and Isa was alone. She stood there for a long moment, still clutching the blanket, staring at the door as reality crashed over her in waves. This morning she'd woken up, hoping for celebration. Now she was a prisoner in a tower. Her greatest strength declared her greatest threat, sentenced to 3 months of isolation that might end in her execution. Don't cry, she told herself fiercely. Don't give them that. Don't. But the tears came anyway, hot and bitter, streaming down her cheeks as she sank to the cold stone floor. Great racking sobs tore from her chest. 18 years of mockery, of being less than, of trying so hard to be enough and never succeeding. And now, when she'd finally proven she was powerful, they'd locked her away like a monster. You are not a monster, her wolf's presence whispered in her mind. Stronger now than it had ever been before the shift. You are magnificent. They cage you because they fear what you could become. What good is magnificent if I'm alone? Isa whispered back to the empty room. What good is power if it only makes them hate me more? Her wolf had no answer for that. Eventually, the tears stopped. Isa forced herself to stand, to drop the blanket and pull on the rough clothing. A shapeless gray dress that hung on her thin frame and scratched against her skin. There was no mirror, but she could imagine how she looked. A ghost in a tower, colorless and forgotten. She moved to the window and gripped the iron bars, looking out at the forest beyond. The trees were thick here, old growth that had stood for centuries. In the distance, she could see mountains rising purple against the afternoon sky, beautiful and completely unreachable. A sound at the door made her turn. The bolt scraped back and a different guard entered, older with gray threading through his dark hair and eyes that held something approaching sympathy. Thornwood, setting down a tray with bread, cheese, and water. I'm Captain Aldrich. I'll be overseeing your confinement, my imprisonment, Isla corrected quietly. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. The Alpha has assigned me to supervise your training. We'll begin tomorrow morning at dawn. You'll learn to call your wolf, to shift at will, and to maintain control during transformation. Hope flickered in Ila's chest. Thank you. I want to learn. I need to prove I'm not a threat. Aldrich studied her for a long moment, and something sad crossed his weathered face. Eat. Rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. He left before she could ask what he meant. Isa ate mechanically. The bread was stale, the cheese nearly hard, the water tepid, but it filled the hollow ache in her stomach. As the sun set and darkness crept into her small room, she lay on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about her family. Were they glad she was gone, relieved that the embarrassment had been removed from their home, or had her mother felt even a moment of concern for her colorless daughter, locked in a tower? Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams, where she ran through forests on 4 white legs, powerful and free, only to wake and find iron bars blocking her escape. Dawn came with the scrape of the bolt, and Aldrich's weathered face appearing in the doorway. Up, he commanded. Training begins now. Isa scrambled from the bed, her body stiff from sleeping on the thin mattress. She followed Aldrich down the winding stairs and out into a small courtyard behind the keep, a circular space perhaps 30 feet across, surrounded by high stone walls. A cage, she realized, just a slightly larger cage. Strip, Aldrich said, his tone businesslike and free of the cruelty Garrett had used. You can't train to shift if you're worried about ruining clothing. Isa's cheeks burned, but she complied, folding the rough dress carefully and setting it aside. The morning air was cold against her skin, raising goosebumps along her arms. Now, Aldrich said, circling her slowly, call your wolf. But this time, control the shift. Don't let her overwhelm you. You command her, not the other way around. Isa closed her eyes and reached inward to that place where her wolf waited. The presence was immediate, vast and powerful, pressing against her consciousness like an ocean pressing against a dam. Easy, Isla thought. Slowly, we shift together. But the moment she opened that internal door, her wolf surged forward like a tidal wave. Isa screamed as the shift took her bones, breaking and reforming, body expanding rapidly, fur erupting across her skin. It was faster than yesterday, but no less agonizing. When it was over, her massive white wolf stood panting in the courtyard, barely fitting in the space between the walls. Too fast, Aldrich said calmly, though he'd pressed himself back against the wall well away from her enormous form. You let her take control. Try again. Shift back. Isa tried. She visualized her human form, reached for that internal switch, but her wolf wasn't ready. It wanted to run to stretch these powerful muscles to feel the wind in its fur. Please, Ela begged. Please shift back. I need to show them I can control this. Her wolf resisted for another minute, long enough to make Isla panic before finally relenting. The shift back left her gasping and shaking on the cold ground. Again, Aldrich commanded, and so it went, shift, shift back. Over and over and over, until Isla's body felt like one massive bruise, until she was sobbing from pain and exhaustion, until she couldn't tell where her consciousness ended and her wolves began. Enough, Aldrich finally said as the sun reached its peak. That's sufficient for today, but I haven't, Isa gasped. I can't control it yet. I need more time to tomorrow. Aldrich cut her off, his expression unreadable. We'll continue tomorrow. He escorted her back to her room, left food and water, and locked the door behind him. Ela collapsed on the bed, every muscle screaming, but beneath the physical pain was something worse, a creeping suspicion that had been growing all morning. Aldrich had pushed her to shift repeatedly, forced her to exhaust herself, but he'd given her no actual instruction, no guidance on how to control her wolf, no techniques or strategies. Just do it over and over until she couldn't anymore. That wasn't training, that was breaking. The pattern continued for days. Wake at dawn, strip, shift until she collapsed. Return to her cage. Garrett brought her meals with sneers and comments that grew progressively crueler. The younger guard, she learned his name was Thomas. Sometimes looked guilty, but never intervened. A week passed. Then, too, Isa's body grew stronger from the repeated shifts, her wolf becoming slightly more responsive. But the control she desperately needed remained elusive, and Aldrich's training never evolved beyond the same brutal repetition. On the 15th day, everything changed. Isa was mid-shift, her body caught in that agonizing moment between human and wolf, when a commotion erupted from the front of the keep. Voices shouting, the sounds of arrival. Her shift completed just as Alpha Kieran strode into the courtyard. Celeste beautiful and composed at his side, Isa's massive white wolf froze, every instinct screaming danger. Well, Celeste's musical voice carried across the space. Look at that! Still no control even after 2 weeks of training. How disappointing. Kieran's dark eye swept over Ila's wolf form, and she saw the calculation there. The assessment. Aldrich reports she's made minimal progress. Her shifts are still violent, uncontrolled. She still can't shift on command reliably because he's not teaching me. Isla wanted to scream, because this isn't real training. It's torture designed to prove I'm dangerous. But she couldn't speak in wolf form, couldn't defend herself, could only stand there while they discussed her failure like she wasn't present. Perhaps, Celeste said thoughtfully, moving closer with casual confidence that made Isla's wolf instincts bristle. We need to try different methods, more intensive approaches. After all, we only have 6 weeks left before the council must make its decision. It would be such a tragedy if Isla couldn't prove she's safe to return to the pack. The false sympathy in her sister's voice made Isa's wolf growl low in its chest, a sound that rumbled like distant thunder. Celeste's eyes flashed with something triumphant. See? Aggressive. Unstable. Exactly what we feared. She's scared. A new voice cut in. Thomas, the young guard, stepped forward despite Garrett's warning glare. She's been isolated for 2 weeks, forced to shift repeatedly with no real guidance. And now strangers enter her space. Any wolf would be defensive. Are you questioning the alpha's mate? Garrett snarled at him. I'm stating facts, Thomas said quietly. But Isla could smell his fear. He was risking everything to speak up for her. Celeste studied Thomas with the cold calculation of a predator assessing prey. How loyal. Tell me, young Thomas, do you have feelings for my defective sister? Is that why you defend her? Thomas's cheeks colored. I defend Paklaw. And Paka says she deserves proper training. Not what. Kieran's voice was sharp as a blade. Not the best training we can provide. Captain Aldrich is one of our finest warriors. If he says she's unteachable, then perhaps the problem isn't the method. Perhaps the problem is that she can't be taught. Isla's wolf wanted to lunge, to roar, to show them exactly how much control she didn't have. But some deeper instinct, maybe Isla's human consciousness bleeding through, held her back. This is a test, she realized. They're trying to provoke me, trying to make me lose control so they can declare me dangerous and end this farce of a trial period early. With every ounce of willpower she possessed, Isla forced her wolf to back down, to lower its massive head, to break eye contact with Kieran and demonstrate submission. Even though it felt like swallowing glass, even though her wolf howled in protest, silence fell over the courtyard. Interesting, Aldrich said quietly from where he'd been watching. She just demonstrated more control than she has in 2 weeks. She recognized the political trap and chose submission over aggression. Kieran's expression flickered with something surprise. Respect? It vanished too quickly for Isla to be sure. One moment of control doesn't prove anything, Celeste said sharply. She's still enormous, still unstable, still a threat to you. The words came from Isla's wolf. Somehow she'd managed to push her human voice through her shifted form, though it came out distorted and strange. Threat to your position. Every person in the courtyard froze. Wolves couldn't speak in shifted form. It was physically impossible. The vocal cords were wrong. The mouth structure incompatible with human speech. Except Isla just had. Celeste's beautiful face went pale, then flushed with rage. You see, she's unnatural. Speaking in wolf form is an abomination. A sign of the white Luna, Aldrich interrupted, his voice filled with awe. The legends mention it. The white Luna could speak in any form, could command with voice or thought. If Isla can speak while shifted, then she's more powerful than we thought. Kieran finished, and now there was definitely something in his eyes. Something that looked almost like fear, which makes her more dangerous or more valuable. Dangerous, Celeste insisted. She must be enough. Kieran raised a hand, silencing his betrothed. He studied Isa's massive white wolf with unreadable dark eyes. You have 6 weeks remaining, Isa Thornawood. I suggest you learn control quickly because when the council reconvenes for your trial, speaking while shifted won't be enough. You'll need to prove you can shift at will, maintain control under stress, and submit to pack hierarchy. If you can't, he let the threat hang unfinished. They left then Celeste with barely concealed fury. Kieran with his characteristic cold calculation. Garrett smirking at Isla's exhaustion. Only Thomas remained behind for a moment. You spoke? He whispered wonder in his voice. You actually spoke? Do you know what that means? Isla's wolf was too tired to respond. She shifted back to human form. The transition was getting slightly smoother with repetition and collapsed naked and shaking on the cold ground. Thomas quickly looked away, grabbing the gray dress and handing it to her without looking. It means you're special, Isla. Really special? The kind of special that threatens everything they've built. Or the kind of special that gets me killed, Isla whispered hoarsely, pulling the dress over her head with trembling hands. Thomas met her eyes finally, and she saw genuine concern there. Then, we make sure that doesn't happen. I'll help you. Real training, not whatever Aldrich has been doing, but we have to be careful. If Celeste finds out why Ella had to ask, why risk yourself for me? Thomas smiled sad and small. Because 3 years ago, when I first joined the guard and the older wolves were making my life hell, you were the only one who was kind to me. You probably don't even remember you were just 15, working in the kitchens, but you saved me extra food, smiled when you saw me, treated me like I mattered. He shrugged. Seems like it's my turn to return the favor. Tears pricked Isa's eyes. She'd forgotten about that. Forgotten the shy young guard who'd looked so lost and alone. She'd just been trying to be kind the way she wished others would be kind to her. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Thomas said grimly. We have 6 weeks to turn you from a threat into an asset. And trust me, Celeste is going to do everything in her power to make sure you fail. He left her then, the bolt, sliding home with its now familiar finality, but for the first time since arriving at the Luna's keep, didn't feel quite so alone. Her wolf stirred in her mind, no longer just a presence, but something close to a voice. We will not fail, it seemed to say. We will not break. And when the time comes, Sister Deer will learn exactly what she's created by locking us away. Monsters, after all, are made in cages, and we are becoming something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. Chapter 4. Breaking Protocols. True to his word, Thomas returned that night. The bolt scraped back long after darkness had fallen. After Garrett's final sneering inspection and the changing of the guard rotation, Isla jerked awake from uneasy sleep as Thomas slipped into her small room, carrying a covered lantern that cast dancing shadows across the stone walls. Get up, he whispered urgently, quietly. We don't have much time. Isa scrambled from the bed, her heart hammering. If they catch you, then we both better make sure they don't. Thomas set the lantern on the small table and pulled out a rolled parchment from inside his guard uniform. This is a map of packed territories, going back 200 years. Look here, he pointed to a section marked in faded ink. The Luna's Keep wasn't always a prison. It was built as a sanctuary for powerful Luna wolves who needed isolation to master dangerous abilities. Ela leaned closer, studying the ancient script. What kind of abilities? Prophecy. Mind speaking across vast distances, the ability to command other wolves without alpha authority. Thomas's finger traced lines of text. The keep has hidden features rooms designed for training, for meditation, for channeling power safely, but they've been sealed for generations, ever since the last White Luna died. Isa finished quietly, or was killed. Thomas nodded grimly. The records are vague about what happened, but there are clues, references to a purge of the white, to pack leaders who feared being replaced by moon-blessed authority. I think they murdered her, Isa. And then they rewrote history to make it seem like she went mad, became dangerous. Cold understanding crystallized in Isla's chest. And now they're trying to do the same to me. Celeste orchestrated the public shift to make me look dangerous. Aldrich's training is designed to break me, not teach me. They're creating the narrative of the Mad White Luna all over again. Exactly. Thomas pulled out another parchment, this one newer, covered in neat handwriting. So, we're going to actually train you. Real training starting tonight. But Garrett will notice if I'm gone from my room. Garrett drinks himself stupid every night after his shift ends. Takes a skin of whiskey to his quarters and doesn't emerge until dawn. Thomas's smile was grim. I checked his pattern for a week before approaching you. We have about 4 hours before the next guard rotation. Isla wanted to cry with relief and gratitude. Instead, she squared her shoulders and nodded. What do we do first? First, Thomas said, his expression becoming serious. You need to understand what you are. The White Luna isn't just a bigger, stronger wolf. According to these texts, she's a conduit for the moon goddess's power. Your wolf isn't just part of you. It's a piece of divine will made flesh. That's why she's so hard to control. Isa breathed. She's not supposed to submit to alpha authority because she answers to something higher, right? But that doesn't mean you can't work with her. Partnership, not dominance. Every other wolf is taught to dominate their beast. To be the master, you need to do the opposite. You need to become equals. It was so contrary to everything Isla had ever been taught about wolf nature that it took her a moment to process how we start with communication. Thomas gestured to the floor. Sit. Close your eyes. Instead of trying to call your wolf or push her down, just talk to her like you would a friend. Isa sat cross-legged on the cold stone, feeling foolish. But she closed her eyes and reached inward to that vast presence that had taken up residence in her consciousness. Hello, she thought tentatively. I know we haven't exactly been working together. I've been trying to control you, and you've been well-being you. Her wolf's presence shifted, not hostile, but wary, curious. They're trying to break us, Isla continued. Both of us. They want to prove we're dangerous so they can justify killing us or exiling us. But I don't want to fight you. I want to understand you. Can we? Can we try working together? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, her wolf's consciousness brushed against hers. Not overwhelming, not dominating, but touching, tentative, testing. And in that touch, Isla felt something that made her breath catch. Her wolf wasn't some mindless beast. She was ancient, wise, tired of being locked away, frustrated by Isla's attempts to cage her the way the pack had caged them both. I'm sorry, Isla whispered internally. I'm sorry I tried to control you. I was scared. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Her wolf's response came not in words, but in feelings, understanding, acceptance, and underneath it all, a fierce protective love for Isla that brought tears to her eyes. We are one, her wolf seemed to say. Not master, beast, not human and animal. We are two halves of the same soul. When you suffer, I suffer. When they cage you, they cage me. Isa. Thomas's voice was gentle. What's happening? Your eyes are glowing. Isla opened her eyes and gasped. Her hands resting on her knees were emitting a soft white light, not bright enough to hurt, but definitely visible in the dim room. I'm talking to her. Really talking. And Thomas, she's not dangerous. She's been protecting me my whole life. locked away because she was too powerful to emerge safely when I was young. She's been waiting until I was strong enough to handle her presence. Can you shift? Thomas asked. Not forced, not violent. Just ask her to come forward. Isla looked inward again. Can we shift together gently? Her wolf responded with what felt almost like eagerness. And this time when the shift came, it was different. Yes. There was pain bones, and muscles reforming would always hurt. But it was controlled pain, expected pain, like the burn of muscles during exercise, rather than the agony of broken bones. The shift took maybe 20 seconds instead of the minute-long torture sessions with Aldrich. When it was complete, Isla's massive white wolf stood in the small room, her head nearly brushing the low ceiling. But she was calm, controlled, aware, incredible. Thomas breathed, pressing himself against the wall to give her space. You're not even panting. Your eyes are clear. This is Isla. This is what real control looks like. Can we speak? Isa asked her wolf. We are speaking, came the response clearer now, almost like hearing another voice in her head. I can hear you, Isla said aloud, and her wolf voice, while still deep and resonant, was comprehensible. We can communicate while shifted. The legends were true. Thomas said in awe, the white Luna could speak in any form because she wasn't just one or the other. She was both always. Ella, do you understand what this means? If you can demonstrate this level of control at the trial, Celeste will find another way to condemn me. Isa finished, her wolf voice rumbling through the small room. She can't let me return to the pack. I'm too great a threat to her position. Thomas's expression grew grim. Then we make you too valuable to kill. If you can prove you're not just powerful, but controllable, useful, the pack will demand you be allowed back. Political pressure Kieran can't ignore. How? Isla shifted back to human form. Another smooth, controlled transition that left her tired but not devastated. How do I prove I'm useful when they've locked me away from everyone? Thomas was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then his eyes widened. The border raids. What? For the past month, the northern border has been under attack. Rogue wolves, organized and aggressive. We've lost 3 guards and twice that many civilians. Karen has doubled patrols, but the rogues always seem to know where we'll be. Like they have inside information. Thomas leaned forward intently. If you could help stop them, if a white Luna saved pack lives, they couldn't condemn you. You'd be a hero. I'm locked in a tower, Isla pointed out. How exactly am I supposed to help with border raids? Your wolf can speak while shifted. Can she do other things? The texts mention white Lunas who could communicate with all wolves telepathically. Who could sense threats from miles away? Who could? I don't know what I can do, Isla interrupted. I only just started talking to her properly tonight. Then we figure it out. Thomas began rolling up the parchments. We have 6 weeks. I'll come every night I can. We'll test your abilities. Push your boundaries safely. Learn what you're capable of. And if we're lucky, you'll be able to contribute to solving the rogue problem even from here. A thought occurred to Isla. Thomas. If there are rogues with inside information, has anyone considered that someone in the pack might be helping them? Thomas froze. You think someone is betraying us to the rogues? I think someone benefits from pack instability right now. Someone who wants Kieran distracted, wants the council focused on external threats instead of internal politics. Ela met his eyes. Someone who needs 3 months to consolidate power while I'm locked away. Celeste, Thomas whispered. You think Celeste is behind the rogue attacks? I think my sister wants to be Luna more than anything, and I think she'd do whatever it takes to remove threats to that position. Isa wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold, including orchestrating attacks that make the pack need a strong alpha pair, that justify harsh security measures that keep everyone too scared and busy to question her authority. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, looking shaken. If you're right, if we can prove it, then we need evidence. Real evidence, not just suspicion. Isa's mind was racing now, pieces falling into place. Can you get me information? Reports on the attacks, patrol schedules, anything that might show a pattern. I'll try. But Isla, if Celeste finds out we're investigating her, she's already trying to have me killed. I don't think things can get much worse. Thomas gave her a look that suggested things could definitely get worse, but he nodded. I'll be careful and I'll be back tomorrow night. Practice what we worked on tonight, talking to your wolf. Smooth shifts. Build that partnership. He was almost to the door when Isa called out softly, Thomas, thank you. Really? You're risking everything for me. He turned back, and in the lamplight, she saw something in his expression that made her breath catch. Not quite love, but something tender. Something that saw her as more than the colorless daughter, or the dangerous white Luna. You're worth the risk, he said simply. Then he was gone, the bolt sliding home with its familiar finality. But this time, Isla didn't feel trapped. She sat back down on the floor and closed her eyes, reaching for her wolf. We have work to do, she thought. Her wolf's response felt almost like a smile. Finally, I've been waiting 18 years for you to be ready. Ready for what? To stop being what they tried to make you, to start becoming what you were always meant to be. And what's that? Her wolf's presence wrapped around her consciousness like a warm embrace. Free. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a pattern of exhaustion and discovery. During the days, Isla endured Aldrich's brutal training, the same repetitive, breaking exercises designed to prove she couldn't learn control. She played along, made her shifts look violent and uncontrolled, gave them the dangerous beast they expected to see. But at night, when Thomas could slip away from his duties, she became something else entirely. She learned to shift in seconds instead of minutes, learned to speak clearly in wolf form, to maintain her human consciousness while her beast was in control, learned to reach out with her mind and sense the emotions of wolves nearby. Initially just Thomas, but gradually extending her range. You're a natural empath, Thomas explained one night as they practiced in her small room. You can feel what other wolves feel. That's how the white Luna earned loyalty. She understood her pack on a level no regular alpha could. Can I do more than sense emotions? Isa asked. Can I communicate? Send thoughts? Try it. Think something at me clearly. Isla focused, reached out with that new sense she was developing, and pushed a thought toward Thomas. Can you hear me? Thomas's eyes went wide. Yes, I heard you. It was like hearing someone whisper directly into my mind. Try it again. They practiced for hours until Isla could send clear thoughts to Thomas even when she wasn't shifted. It was exhausting, draining, but exhilarating. This is what you need to show the council, Thomas said excitedly. Not just physical control, but mental abilities. Proof that you're not a mindless beast, but something more evolved, more useful. But the more abilities Isla discovered, the more worried she became about Celeste's reaction. Her sister wouldn't just roll over and accept defeat. She'd escalate. The answer to how came 4 weeks into Isla's imprisonment. Thomas arrived that night with blood on his uniform and panic in his eyes. What happened? Isla demanded, her wolf surging forward protectively. Another border attack. The worst yet. Thomas was shaking. They hit a patrol of 6 wolves. Only 2 survived. And Isa, they were carrying silver weapons. Rogues don't use silver. It's too expensive, too hard to work with. Someone supplied them with weapons specifically designed to kill werewolves. Isa's blood ran cold. Celeste, I think so, but I can't prove it. The survivors said the rogues knew exactly where the patrol would be, exactly when to strike, like they had the schedule memorized. Thomas paced her small room agitated. Kieran is furious. He's calling an emergency council meeting tomorrow. They're talking about martial law, about restricting movement, about what? Thomas met her eyes and she saw fear there, about moving up your trial. Some council members are arguing that they need every strong wolf available to fight the rogues. that they can't afford to keep you locked away if you could help defend the pack. But others, led by Celeste, are arguing that you're too dangerous to release, that the rogues might be after you specifically, that letting you out would make things worse. She's building the narrative. Isa realized either I stay locked up and useless, or I'm released, and she arranges for something to happen that makes me look dangerous or traitorous. Either way, she wins. Not if we can prove she's behind the attacks. How? We have suspicions, not evidence. Thomas pulled out a folded paper from inside his blood-stained uniform. One of the survivors managed to wound a rogue before it escaped. Drew blood. I collected a sample. He held up a small vial of dark red liquid. If we can test this, find out if there's any pack scent on it. Any connection to someone inside our territory. Who would do the testing? Anyone we bring this to might be loyal to Celeste. Grandmother Mora, Thomas said firmly. She's ancient, she's powerful, and she remembers the old ways. She was the one who recognized you as a white Luna. If anyone would help us, it's her. Can you get this to her without being seen? I can try. But Isla, if I'm caught with rogue blood and accused of working with them, then don't get caught. Isa gripped his hand. Please, this might be our only chance to prove what's really happening. Thomas nodded, tucking the vial back inside his uniform. I'll go tonight. The council meeting is at dawn. If I can get results before then. He didn't finish the sentence, but they both understood the stakes. He was almost out the door when Isla called out, Thomas, be careful. If Celeste suspects you know something, I know. He smiled, small and brave, but someone has to stand up for what's right. Might as well be the guard who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. Then he was gone. Isa stood alone in her small room, her heart hammering. She reached for her wolf, and the presence came immediately, strong and steady. Something's wrong, her wolf said. I can feel it. Danger approaching. Thomas will be okay, Isla thought, but she wasn't sure she believed it. Not Thomas, her wolf corrected. Us? They're coming for us. Who? Footsteps on the stairs. Multiple sets, heavy boots, moving fast. Isa's door burst open, and Garrett stood there with 3 other guards she didn't recognize. His smile was cruel and victorious. Isla Thornawood. By order of the Alpha and Council, you are to be moved to the dungeons immediately pending emergency trial. What? Why? I have 2 more weeks. You have what the Alpha says you have. Garrett grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. And right now, he says you're too dangerous to keep in comfortable quarters. Seems there's been some concern you might be communicating with the rogues somehow, using your unnatural abilities to help them target our patrols. Isa's blood turned to ice. That's insane. I've been locked in this tower for a month. How could I possibly magic mind tricks? Who knows what a white Luna can do? Garrett hauled her toward the door. All I know is that you're being moved somewhere that can't be compromised. Somewhere even your witch tricks can't reach. They dragged her down the winding stairs, through the keep's main level, and down another set of stairs she hadn't known existed. Down into darkness and cold into the bowels of the earth where light didn't reach and hope went to die. The dungeons. They threw her into a cell barely 6 feet square with stone walls slick with moisture and a floor covered in old straw that reeked of decay. No bed, no window, no light except what filtered in from torches in the corridor. The trial is tomorrow at dawn, Garrett said through the bars. Better get your story straight, colorless, because this time there's no chance they'll let you live. The cell door clanged shut, and Isa was alone in the dark with her wolf howling in fury and fear. While somewhere above them, Celeste was making her final move. Thomas, Isa thought desperately, reaching out with her newly developed mental abilities. Thomas, can you hear me? They've moved me. They're accelerating the trial. Thomas, please. But there was nothing. Just silence and darkness and the cold certainty that everything was falling apart. Her wolf pressed against her consciousness, no longer separate, but merging, becoming one. Then we fight, her wolf growled. Tomorrow, when they drag us out to condemn us, we show them what happens when you back a blessed wolf into a corner. They'll kill us if we attack. They'll kill us anyway, her wolf responded. At least this way we die free. And in the crushing darkness of the dungeon, Isla couldn't argue with that logic. Chapter 5. The Trial of Blood. Dawn came without light in the dungeons. I knew morning had arrived only by the increase in activity, above footsteps echoing through stone corridors. Voices raised in preparation, the distant sound of crowds gathering. The entire pack would be assembling for her trial, her execution. More accurately, she'd spent the night huddled in the corner of her cell, shivering in the damp cold, her wolf prowling restlessly through her consciousness. They hadn't slept, hadn't dared to let their guard down even for a moment. Thomas never responded. Isa thought desperately, reaching out one more time with her mental abilities. Thomas, if you can hear me, please? Still nothing. Either he was too far away or something had happened to him. Neither possibility brought comfort. The sound of boots on stone stairs made Isla's head snap up. Multiple guards descended into the dungeon led by Garrett, whose smirk promised nothing good. Time for your trial colorless, he announced, unlocking the cell door. Though I suppose we should call you White Wolf now. Not that it'll matter in a few hours. They hauled her out roughly, clamping silver manacles around her wrists that burned against her skin. Silver, the one metal that could suppress a werewolf's healing, that caused agonizing pain on contact. Isa bit back a cry as the metal seared her flesh. Can't have you shifting during the proceedings, Garrett explained with false cheerfulness. Alpha's orders. You'll face judgment in human form only. They dragged her up the stairs, through corridors she'd never seen, and finally into blinding sunlight. Isla blinked against the brightness, her eyes struggling to adjust after a night in complete darkness. The council grounds were even more packed than they'd been a month ago. Every wolf in Crescent Valley must have turned out for this spectacle. They lined the tired stone seating, pressed against railings, craned their necks for a better view. The air thrummed with anticipation. The crowd's bloodlust was a palpable thing that made Isla's wolf snarl in defiance. At the center of it all stood the council table, and seated there were the 5 most powerful wolves in the pack. Alpha Kiran sat at the head, his expression carved from granite. Beside him, radiant in white silk that made her golden hair shine like a crown, sat Celeste. Isla's sister met her eyes across the arena and smiled. Beautiful, cold, victorious. Isa Thornwood. Counselor Thorne's voice boomed across the grounds, silencing the crowd. You stand before this council charged with being an uncontrollable threat to pack safety. 1 month ago, you were granted a trial period of 3 moon cycles to prove you could master your wolf. That trial period has been terminated early due to evidence suggesting you pose an immediate danger to pack survivals. What evidence? Isla called out, her voice from disuse, but carrying across the arena. I've been locked away for a month. How could I possibly threaten anyone? The evidence. Celeste rose gracefully from her seat. Her voice resonant and authoritative is in the bodies. 5 wolves killed in rogue attacks over the past 4 weeks. Attacks that grew progressively more sophisticated, more targeted, as if the rogues had inside information. And the timing, she paused dramatically. The attacks began exactly when the white wolf manifested. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Isla felt her heart sink as she realized how neatly Celeste had framed this. You're suggesting I'm working with rogues? Isa said incredulously. I've been imprisoned in the Luna's keep. I've had no contact with anyone except guards, and she stopped herself just in time. Mentioning Thomas would only implicate him in whatever narrative Celeste was building. Except guards. Celeste finished smoothly. Yes, guards who report your wolf can speak in shifted form, who say you demonstrated unusual mental abilities. The old texts mention white lunas, who could communicate across vast distances, who could infiltrate minds and plant suggestions. She turned to address the crowd. What if the White Wolf has been reaching out to rogues telepathically, feeding them information, coordinating attacks, weakening our pack from within? That's insane, Isla protested. Why would I help rogues attack the pack I belong to? Because you don't belong here. Celeste's voice turned sharp, all pretense of sympathy dropping away. You never have. You're a mutation, an aberration. The colorless daughter who should have been cold at birth, but was allowed to live out of misplaced mercy. And now you've manifested a power that threatens the natural order of this pack. The crowd was turning. Isa could feel it. Fear was a powerful weapon, and Celeste wielded it masterfully. Wolves who had watched Isla's transformation with awe a month ago now looked at her with suspicion and hostility. Where's Thomas? Isa demanded, desperation making her bold. Guard Thomas was assigned to supervise my training. Where is he? Let him testify about my progress. About Guard Thomas. Alpha Kieran spoke for the first time, his voice heavy, was found this morning in an unauthorized area of packed territory. He was carrying stolen documents, border patrol schedules, guard rotations, information that would be extremely valuable to rogues planning attacks. Isa's world tilted. No, Thomas would never. He was also carrying this. Kieran held up a small vial of dark liquid. The vial Thomas had shown her last night, containing rogue blood he'd collected as evidence. They'd caught him, and now they were twisting everything, turning his investigation into proof of betrayal. That's rogue blood, Isa shouted. He collected it to test, to find evidence of who was really behind the attacks. Or, Celeste interjected smoothly, he collected it to deliver to his co-conspirator. You, Isa, the White Wolf who can reach across distances with her mind, who could coordinate with rogues without ever leaving her tower prison, using poor loyal Thomas as your pawn. Where is he? Isla's voice cracked. What have you done with Thomas? He's in custody, Kieran said flatly, awaiting his own trial for treason. But this trial is about you, Isa, about whether you can be allowed to exist within this pack. Grandmother Mora stirred from where she'd been sitting silent at the far end of the council table. The ancient elder rose slowly, her weathered face grave. I examined the vial young Thomas carried, she said, her voice thin, but carrying authority. And I found something troubling. Isa's heart leaped with hope. If Grandmother Mora had found evidence linking the rogue blood to someone in the pack, the blood contained traces of pack scent, Mora continued, which confirms the rogues have been in close contact with someone from Crescent Valley. But more than that, I found residue of a rare herb silver leaf that grows only in 3 locations, one of which is the forest surrounding the Luna's keep. No, this couldn't be happening. Silverleaf near the keep proves nothing, Isla protested. Anyone could have access to that forest. Any wolf could they? Celeste's voice was poison-sweet. The Luna's keep is isolated, Isa guarded. The only wolves with regular access to that area are the guards assigned to watch you. Guards like Thomas. She paused, letting implications sink in. Unless someone with unusual abilities could communicate beyond those barriers, could reach out to rogues in the forest, coordinate attacks, all while maintaining the appearance of imprisonment. It was a perfect trap. Every piece of evidence Thomas had gathered to prove Celeste's guilt had been twisted to implicate Isla instead. The investigation had been turned into conspiracy, the pursuit of truth into proof of treason. I want to speak with Thomas, Isa demanded. Bring him here. Let him tell his side if that won't be possible, Kieran interrupted. Guard Thomas attempted to escape custody this morning. He was killed, resisting arrest. The words hit Isa like physical blows. Dead. Thomas was dead. The young guard who had risked everything to help her, who had shown her kindness when everyone else showed contempt, who had believed in her worth when no one else did. Dead, you killed him, Isa whispered, her vision blurring with tears. You murdered him to silence him because he knew the truth. He knew Celeste was behind the rogue attacks and you careful. Celestia's voice was steel wrapped in silk. You're making accusations against the Alpha's betrothed without evidence. That's a treasonous offense in itself. I have evidence. Isla was shouting now, past caring about consequences. Thomas was investigating the attacks. He found patterns, inconsistencies in patrol schedules. He was collecting proof that someone inside the pack was coordinating with rogues, and that someone is you, Celeste. You're orchestrating everything the attacks, framing me, killing Thomas, all to consolidate your power, and eliminate any threat to your position as Luna. Silence fell over the arena like a heavy blanket. Every eye was on Isla, some shocked, some angry, some uncertain. Celeste's beautiful face remained calm, but Isla caught a flicker of something in her sister's eyes. Fear or calculation. These are serious accusations, Counselor Thorne said heavily. Do you have proof, Isa Thornwood? Anything beyond conjecture and the word of a dead guard accused of treason? Isa's mouth opened, closed. She had nothing. All the evidence had been with Thomas, and now Thomas was dead, and the evidence twisted beyond recognition. I thought not, Celeste said softly. My poor sister, so desperate to deflect blame that she'll accuse anyone, even family. This is exactly the kind of unstable behavior that proves she's too dangerous to live. The council will vote, Kieran announced, all in favor of declaring Isa Thornwood an irredeemable threat requiring immediate execution. Make your position known. Counselor Thorne raised his hand immediately. Then two others, wolves Isa didn't know well. Older members who clearly valued tradition and fear over truth. 3 votes for her death. Grandmother Mora sat silent, her ancient eyes studying Isla with an expression Isla couldn't read. Elder Mora, Kieran prompted. Your vote will decide this. 3 for execution, 1 vote remains. What say you? The old wolf stood slowly, her gnarled hands gripping the council table for support. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly strong. I say we are making a terrible mistake. Hope flared in Isa's chest. But Mora continued, and the hope guttered like a candle in wind. I am old and have seen much. I have seen good wolves corrupted by power they couldn't control. I have seen the best intentions lead to the worst outcomes. And I have seen what happens when fear guides our decisions. She looked directly at Isla. Child, I believe you are not evil, but I also believe you are dangerous in ways you don't yet understand. Until you can prove otherwise, until you can demonstrate control not just of your wolf, but of the vast power the goddess has placed in your hands, I cannot in good conscience vote for your freedom. She sat down without casting her vote either way. Then it falls to me, Kieran said quietly. He stood, his dark eyes sweeping the crowd before landing on Isla. As Alpha, my vote carries the weight of 2 in matters of pack security, and my decision is wait. The shout came from the edge of the arena. Guards at the entrance struggled with someone trying to push through, a figure in torn, bloodied clothing, limping but determined. Thomas Isla's heart soared and broke simultaneously. He was alive, bleeding from multiple wounds, his face battered but alive and walking into his own execution by returning here. Guard Thomas. Kieran's voice was ice. You were declared a fugitive. Your presence here will only worsen your sentence. I don't care about my sentence. Thomas gasped, finally breaking through the guards and stumbling into the arena. He clutched something in his bloody hands papers. Ela realized documents. I care about the truth, and I have proof, real proof, of who's been coordinating the rogue attacks. If you felt that moment of hope when Thomas appeared, please like this video. Every eye in the arena was fixed on Thomas as he staggered toward the council table. Celestia's face had gone pale, her composure finally cracking. These documents, Thomas held them up with shaking hands, are copies of correspondence I found hidden in the archives. Letters written in code, coordinating patrol schedules with attack times, and they're all in the same handwriting. Handwriting that matches official council documents signed by. He never finished the sentence. Celeste moved faster than anyone expected. One moment, she was seated beside Kieran. The next, she had shifted not into a golden wolf, but something else. Something larger and darker than her usual form, with eyes that glowed red, and launched herself at Thomas. The attack was so swift, so brutal that even the experienced guards couldn't react in time. Celestia's dark wolf slammed into Thomas, jaws closing around his throat, tearing, shredding. Blood sprayed across the arena floor. Thomas fell, the document scattering from his hands like white birds taking flight, and Isla screamed. The sound that tore from her throat wasn't human. It was rage and grief and power made audible. A howl that shook the very stones of the council grounds. The silver manacles on her wrists shattered like glass, unable to contain the fury surging through her. Her shift was instantaneous. One moment, she was a broken girl watching her only friend die. The next, a massive white wolf stood where Isla had been larger than she'd ever been before. Her fur glowing with an inner light that hurt to look at directly, her eyes blazing with the wrath of the moon goddess herself. Celeste's dark wolf turned from Thomas's body, blood dripping from its jaws, and faced Ella with a snarl, and every wolf in the arena saw what Isa's sister truly was. Dark wolf. Grandmother Mora breathed in horror. She's been touched by shadow magic, corrupted. That's why the rogue blood carried Paxant. Because Celeste herself has been working with them, feeding them her own blood to mask their presence. The pieces fell into place with terrible clarity. Celeste hadn't just been coordinating with rogues. She'd been transforming them, using forbidden shadow magic to create an army loyal only to her. The red eyes, the dark fur, the speed and power that exceeded natural wolf abilities. All signs of corruption that should have been impossible for a pack wolf to achieve. Unless she'd been planning this for a very long time. Seize her, Kieran roared, finally recovering from shock. Guards see Celeste immediately, but Celeste was already moving. Her dark wolf bounded toward the arena exit, scattering guards like leaves, moving with unnatural speed toward freedom. Isla didn't think, she just moved. Her massive white wolf launched forward, crossing the arena in 3 great leaps. She hit Celeste's dark form like an avalanche, and they tumbled together across the stone floor in a snarling mass of white and black, light and shadow. Celeste was fast and vicious, enhanced by whatever dark magic she'd embraced. But Isla was larger, stronger, and fueled by righteous fury. "You killed Thomas," Isla's wolf snarled, her voice audible to every wolf in the arena through the mental link she'd learned to use. "You framed me. You corrupted our pack from within, and now you'll answer for it." Celeste, dark wolf, twisted, jaws snapping for Isla's throat. But Isla was no longer the weak girl who couldn't defend herself. She was the White Luna, blessed by the moon goddess, and she had spent a month learning to be more than they expected. She caught Celestia's attack, her massive jaws closing on her sister's neck, not killing, not yet, but pinning, forcing submission. "Yield," Isa commanded, her mental voice crashing through Celestia's mind like a physical blow. "Yield and face judgment. Or I will end this now." For a long moment, Celeste struggled, then finally, her dark wolf went limp in submission. Isa held her there, teeth still pressed against the vulnerable throat, until guards surrounded them both. Only then did she release her sister and stepped back, her white fur still glowing with power, her eyes still blazing with divine fury. Thomas's scattered documents were being gathered by Grandmother Mora, who read them with increasing horror. "It's all here," the elder announced to the stunned arena. Correspondence with rogue leaders, payment records, plans to weaken Kieran's authority by making him appear unable to protect the pack, thus justifying Celeste taking more control, and instructions for a final attack. Her voice wavered. An attack planned for today during Isa's trial, when the entire pack would be gathered defenseless in one location. The implications hit like thunder. If Thomas hadn't stopped the trial, If Isa hadn't been here, if Celeste's plan had proceeded, the rogue army could have slaughtered the entire pack leadership in one coordinated strike. Alpha Kieran stood slowly, his face ashen as he stared at the wolf he'd chosen as his mate. Celeste Thornawood, you stand accused of treason, murder, conspiracy with rogues, and the practice of forbidden shadow magic. How do you answer these charges? Celeste shifted back to human form, and even corrupted, even exposed, she was still beautiful, still composed. I answer, she said clearly, that I did what was necessary. Kieran, you're weak. You would have led this pack to destruction. I was building something greater, something powerful enough to unite all the packs under one true Luna. Me? You murdered our pack members? Kieranson said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. You created an army of shadow corrupted rogues. You framed your own sister and had an innocent guard killed to cover your crimes. Isa was never innocent, Celeste spat, all pretense of civility dropping away. She was an abomination from birth, the colorless daughter who should have been abandoned in the woods to die. Instead, you all kept her, fed her, tolerated her weakness, and then she manifested as a white Luna. She laughed bitter and sharp. The moon goddess was mocking us, giving divine blessing to the least worthy wolf in the pack. I was fixing the goddess's mistake. The only mistake, Ela said quietly, shifting back to human form and feeling no shame in her nakedness. Was yours, sister. You could have been a good Luna. You had the strength, the intelligence, the beauty. But you let jealousy and ambition corrupt you into something dark. And you, Celeste snarled, let weakness and mediocrity define you until divine intervention handed you power you don't deserve. Perhaps, Isa conceded, but I'll use this power to protect our pack. You used yours to destroy it. That's the difference between us. Alpha Kieran looked between the two sisters, one dark and corrupted, one glowing with divine light, and his expression was that of a wolf who'd realized he'd been blind. The council will, he began. The council has no authority here, Grandmother Mora interrupted. Not in matters concerning a white Luna. The old laws are clear. When a white Luna manifests, she answers only to the moon goddess herself. No alpha, no council can command her or condemn her. What are you saying? Kieran demanded. I'm saying. Mora looked directly at Isla. That if Isla wants to take her rightful place as Luna of this pack, no law of ours can prevent it. The white Luna is Luna by divine right, not political appointment. The arena erupted into shocked murmurs. Isa stood in the center of it all, exhausted, grieving, and more powerful than anyone had anticipated. She looked at Thomas's body, at the blood staining the arena stones, at the pack that had mocked her and imprisoned her and nearly killed her, and she made her choice. Chapter 6. The White Luna's Decree. The silence in the arena was absolute. Every wolf waited for Isa's response, some with fear, others with hope, most with uncertainty about what a white Luna ruling their pack would mean. The power dynamic had shifted so dramatically in the span of minutes that no one quite knew where they stood anymore. Isla looked down at her hands, still trembling from the shift, from the violence, from the grief that threatened to swallow her whole. Thomas's blood was cooling on the arena stones, his documents scattered like accusations across the ground. His final act had been to save her, to save them all, and it had cost him everything. No, Isla said quietly. The word fell into the silence like a stone into still water, sending ripples of confusion through the crowd. No, Kieran repeated, his brow furrowing. You're refusing your right to claim Luna status. I'm refusing to claim it through violence and death. Isa's voice grew stronger as she found her footing. Celeste used fear and manipulation to seize power. I won't build my authority on the same foundation she did. If I'm to be Luna, if this pack is to accept me, it needs to be through choice, not divine mandate forcing their submission. Grandmother Mora's ancient eyes studied Isa with something that might have been approval. Wise words from one so young. But child, you understand what you're turning down. The authority of a white Luna is absolute. You could command any wolf in this pack to obey. You could reshape our entire hierarchy with a thought. You're choosing to give that power away. I'm choosing to earn my place instead of taking it. Issa turned to face the crowd, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. For 18 years, you saw me as worthless. The colorless daughter, weak and defective. Some of you mocked me, others pied me. A few, like Thomas, showed me kindness I'll never forget. But none of you truly saw me as an equal. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then I shifted into a white Luna and suddenly I became terrifying, dangerous, a threat that needed to be locked away or eliminated. You still didn't see me as equal. You saw me as something above or below your understanding. Never just Issa. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some wolves looked ashamed. Others remained hostile. So here's what I'm proposing. Isla continued. Give me 1 month. Not as Luna, not as a white wolf you fear, but as a member of this pack proving my worth. Let me help defend against the rogue threat Celeste created. Let me work alongside warriors and healers and hunters. Let me show you through action, not authority, that I deserve a place here, and if we refuse... Soundsler, Thorn asked, his weathered face skeptical. If we decide you're still too dangerous, regardless of your pretty words, Isla met his eyes steadily. Then I'll leave. I'll walk away from Crescent Valley and never return. You'll never have to fear the White Luna, disrupting your hierarchy or challenging your traditions. I'll become a rogue by choice rather than live somewhere I'm not wanted. You'd give up divine power that easily. Celeste laughed from where guards held her restrained. Even captured, even exposed, her voice dripped with contempt. You're even weaker than I thought, sister. This is why you never deserve the goddess's blessing. You're too afraid to actually use it. I'm not afraid to use it, Isa corrected calmly. I'm choosing not to force it on people who aren't ready. There's a difference between weakness and restraint. Restraint is just another word for cowardice when you're too scared to silence. Alpha Kieran commanded, and his authority crashed down on Celeste like a physical weight. She gasped, the dark corruption in her making submission to Alpha Command agonizing. You have no voice here anymore, traitor. He turned back to Isla, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw something other than cold calculation in his dark eyes. Something that might have been respect. Your proposal is unprecedented, Kieran said slowly. A white Luna asking to prove herself rather than claiming her birthright. The council would need to discuss. The council doesn't need to discuss anything. Grandmother Mora interrupted again. She descended from the council platform, with surprising agility for her age, crossing the arena to stand before Isla, child Neil. Ela hesitated, then dropped to her knees on the blood-stained stones. Mora placed her gnarled hands on Isla's head, and power flowed between them, ancient vast. The accumulated wisdom of centuries made tangible. Images flooded Isa's mind. Previous white lunas throughout history. Some who ruled with compassion, others who became tyrants, all struggling with the weight of divine blessing in a world not built for such power. You carry the same burden they did. Mora whispered, her voice for Isla alone, the same bless and curse. But you're the first in recorded history to recognize that power without consent breeds resentment. That forced loyalty crumbles at the first opportunity. You understand what they didn't. That true strength lies not in domination, but in unity freely chosen. The elder's hands lifted, and she addressed the crowd in a voice that carried surprising volume. I am Grandmother Mora, keeper of pack history, witness to 9 alphas and 5 major wars. I have seen this pack at its best and its worst. And I say now before the moon goddess and all assembled Ela Thornwood has proven herself worthy, not through size or power, but through wisdom and restraint, Cesat. I support her proposal. Give her 1 month to demonstrate her value beyond her divine blessing. Let her earn what others would simply take. A ripple of surprised approval moved through some sections of the crowd. Not everyone, there were still plenty of hostile faces, but enough to matter. I also support the proposal, a voice called out. Finn Riverside, the young warrior who had spoken in Isla's defense at her first trial, stepped forward. Isa showed courage when she was weak. She deserves the chance to show what she can do when she's strong, as do I. Another voice joined, then another and another, not a majority. Not even close, but enough voices rising in support that the tide was beginning to shift. Karen watched this unfold with an expression that suggested he was recalculating everything he thought he knew. Finally, he raised his hand for silence. The Alpha's decision carries weight in all pack matters, he announced, and my decision is this. Isa Thornwood will be granted 1 month to prove her value to Crescent Valley Pack. She will be released from confinement immediately. She will be allowed to participate in pack defense, training, and daily life under supervision. At the end of 30 days, the full pack, not just the council, will vote on whether she should be granted full membership and recognition as a White Luna of Crescent Valley. He paused, his eyes finding Isa's. But know this, Isa Thornwood. If you fail, if you lose control or prove too dangerous, the consequences will be immediate and final. No more trials, no more chances. Do you accept these terms? Isa stood slowly, her naked form covered in Thomas's blood, and her own sweat, her silver hair matted and wild. She looked nothing like the traditional image of a Luna. No fine clothes, no careful grooming, no practiced grace. But when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of divine authority, whether she claimed it or not. I accept, and I swear before the moon goddess and this pack, I will prove myself worthy not through fear or force, but through service and sacrifice. I will defend those who cannot defend themselves. I will stand between this pack and any threat, and I will show you that the colorless daughter you dismissed was always stronger than you believed. Then it settled. Kieran gestured to the guards. Someone get her proper clothing and remove Celeste to the dungeons to await judgment for her crimes. Here, as guards moved to comply, Isa's eyes were drawn back to Thomas's body. The young guard who had believed in her, who had risked and ultimately given everything to expose the truth. Grief crashed over her in waves. I want to prepare his body for burial, Isla said quietly. He died a hero. He deserves honor not to be left bleeding on arena stones. He died a traitor, Garrett muttered, but his voice lacked conviction now that the truth had been exposed. He died protecting this pack from the real traitor, Isla corrected, her voice sharp as broken glass, and I will see him honored appropriately. Or the first act of my month-long trial period will be challenging anyone who speaks ill of his sacrifice. Kieran studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Granted, you may prepare Guard Thomas for burial with full honors. He earned that much. Relief flooded through Isla. At least she could give Thomas a proper farewell. Recognition of his courage, proof that his death had meaning. As guards brought clothing and the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with shock and speculation, Grandmother Mora approached, Isa once more. Child, walk with me. There are things you need to know before you begin this trial period. Isla followed the elder away from the arena through packlands toward a small cottage near the archives. Once inside, surrounded by ancient texts and artifacts from pack history, Mora's composed expression finally cracked. You've bought yourself time, but you've also painted a larger target on your back, the old wolf said bluntly. Celeste has allies, wolves, who benefited from her schemes, who believe in her vision of power through strength. They'll work against you, sabotage your efforts, try to make you fail. I know, Ela said quietly, but what choice did I have? Force submission and breed resentment or try to actually earn their trust? No choice at all, really. Not for a wolf with your heart. Mora pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. This belonged to the last White Luna to walk these lands 500 years ago. Her name was Seraphine, and she faced similar challenges. Read her account. Learn from her mistakes, because History Child has a terrible habit of repeating itself when we forget its lessons. Isa accepted the journal with trembling hands. What happened to her? Mora's expression grew dark. She tried to unite the packs through force. Believed her divine authority gave her the right to command absolute obedience. For a time it worked. Wolves submitted because they feared her power. But fear is a poor foundation for loyalty. Eventually, the packs rebelled. They pulled their strength and killed her through coordinated attack. Dozens died in the process, but they succeeded in bringing down the white Luna they'd come to see as a tyrant. And the packs went back to warring with each other, having learned nothing except that united effort could topple even divine power. It took another century of bloodshed before the current pack system stabilized. Mora placed a weathered hand on Isa's shoulder. Don't let fear of being weak make you become tyrannical. And don't let desire for acceptance make you deny who you are. The balance between those extremes is where true leadership lives. How do I find that balance? By doing exactly what you're doing, walking among your pack as one of them, not above them. By listening more than you command, by protecting rather than conquering. Mora's ancient eyes held depths of wisdom. Isla was only beginning to understand. And by remembering that power is a tool, not an identity, you are Isa first, White Luna second. Never let that order reverse. Isla clutched the journal to her chest. Thank you for supporting me in the arena, for giving me this. Thank me by surviving the next month, child. Because I'm too old to witness another White Luna's fall. My heart couldn't take it. Despite the harsh words, Mora's expression was fond. Now go prepare your friend for burial. Grieve him properly. Tomorrow your real trial begins. The next hours passed in a blur of heartache and ritual. Isla washed Thomas's body herself, carefully cleaning away the blood, preparing him for burial according to pack traditions. She wrapped him in white cloth, placed sacred herbs around his body, and sat vigil through the night, as was customary for warriors who died defending the pack. Other wolves came to pay respects more than Isla expected. Apparently, Thomas had been well liked among the younger guards, respected for his fairness and dedication. Several warriors she didn't know personally shared stories of his kindness, his courage, his quiet determination to do what was right, even when it cost him. He believed in you, Finn. Riverside said when he came to offer respects last week, he told me you were going to surprise everyone, that the White Luna would prove herself worthy, and shame all the wolves who'd mocked the colorless daughter. He was proud to help you even knowing the risk. Tears slipped down Isla's cheeks. He shouldn't have died for me. He should have stayed quiet, stayed safe. Then Celeste would have succeeded and dozens more would be dead. Thomas made his choice knowing the cost. Honor that choice by making sure his sacrifice mattered. Finn met her eyes steadily. Prove him right. Ela, show us all that he didn't die for nothing. At dawn, they buried Thomas in the pack cemetery with full honors. Alpha Chiron himself spoke words of remembrance, acknowledging Thomas's courage in exposing Celeste's treason. The young guard was laid to rest among warriors and heroes, his name carved in stone so it would be remembered. Isa stood at the graveside long after others left, her hand pressed against the earth that covered her friend. "I'll make it count," she whispered. "I promise, Thomas, your death will mean something. I'll prove that truth and courage matter more than power and manipulation. I'll show them the pack you believed we could be." The wind rustled through leaves overhead, and for just a moment, Isla imagined she felt Thomas's approval, a gentle presence that seemed to say, "I know you will." By afternoon, Isa's trial period officially began. She was assigned to work with the Border Patrol, specifically helping to defend against the remaining rogues from Celeste's corrupted army. Many of the shadow-touched wolves had scattered when their leader fell, but some remained dangerous and unpredictable. The patrol captain was a grizzled female wolf named Captain Vera, who regarded Issa with open skepticism. "White Luna or not, you follow my commands out here," Vera said bluntly. "I don't care about divine blessings or political games. I care about keeping my wolves alive and our borders secure. You prove you can do that. We'll get along fine. You prove a liability, and I'll personally recommend your exile." "Clear?" "Crystal clear, Captain," Issa responded. "What do you need me to do?" Vera looked surprised by the lack of argument, but recovered quickly. "We're doing a sweep of the northern forest, where most recent attacks originated. You'll work with Finn's squad. Stay in formation, follow orders, and for the goddess's sake, don't shift unless specifically commanded. Your size makes you too visible, and draws attention we don't need on reconnaissance." The work was hard, tedious, and nothing like Isla imagined proving herself would be. Hours of careful tracking through dense forest, searching for signs of rogue presence, marking territories, checking trap lines, unglamorous grunt work that left her exhausted and filthy, but she did it without complaint. Over the following days, a pattern emerged. Isla worked wherever she was assigned: border patrol, kitchen duty, helping repair buildings damaged in attacks, assisting the healers with wounded warriors. She took the jobs no one else wanted, worked longer hours than required, and never once invoked her status as White Luna to demand special treatment. Slowly, grudgingly, attitudes began to shift. "She's not what I expected," His LA overheard one warrior tell another during a patrol break. "Figured a White Luna would be all arrogant and demanding. But she just works like any other wolf. Still don't trust her," the other responded. "That much power in one wolf is dangerous, compliant or not. Maybe, but at least she's trying." It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was progress. The real test came 2 weeks into her trial period when a massive rogue attack hit the eastern border. Isla was on patrol with Finn's squad when the howl went up a warning cry that spoke of multiple hostiles, coordinated assault, pack members in danger. Captain Vera's voice crackled through the mental link. All patrol wolves shared. "All units converge on Eastern Checkpoint 7. Heavy rogue presence. We have civilians trapped. I repeat, civilians trapped." Finn's squad was closest. Without hesitation, he gave the order. "Double time. Move." They ran through the forest, shifting to wolf form for speed. Isla's massive white wolf loped alongside the others, careful to match their pace rather than outdistancing them despite her superior size and speed. They burst into a clearing to find chaos. At least 15 rogues, all bearing the marks of Celesta's shadow corruption, with red eyes and dark fur, had surrounded a group of 5 pack members. 3 were warriors who'd been escorting 2 civilians back from an outlying settlement. The warriors were wounded, struggling to keep the rogues at bay while protecting their charges. "Formation Beta," Finn commanded. "Protect the civilians," I saw. But Isla was already moving. Her massive white wolf crashed into the rogue line like an avalanche, scattering corrupted wolves in all directions. She was larger, stronger, and fueled by righteous purpose. These were Celesta's creatures' abominations, created through dark magic to harm her pack. Her pack. When had she started thinking of Crescent Valley as truly hers? A rogue lunged for her throat. Isla caught it mid-leap, her massive jaws closing on its scruff and tossing it aside like it weighed nothing. Another attacked from behind. She spun surprisingly agile for her size and slammed her shoulder into it with enough force to crack ribs. "Fall back," she commanded through the mental link and was shocked when the rogues actually hesitated. Her White Luna authority worked even on corrupted wolves. Not enough to control them, but enough to momentarily confuse their pack instincts. That moment was all Finn's squad needed. They surged forward in coordinated attack, working together to bring down rogues while Isla held the center. A massive white bulwark between the enemy and the civilians they were protecting. The battle was brutal and swift. Within minutes, the rogues were either dead or fleeing back into the forest. The clearing fell silent except for heavy breathing and the whimpers of wounded. Isla shifted back to human form. The transition smooth and controlled now after weeks of practice. Casualties, 2 warriors wounded, not life-threatening, Finn reported. Also shifting back civilians unharmed, thanks to you. That was incredible. That was terrifying. One of the civilians, a young female holding a child, breathed. She looked at Ela with eyes wide with awe and residual fear. You saved us. The white wolf actually saved us. Isla helped the wounded warriors to their feet, careful with her newfound strength. I'm just glad we got here in time. Can you walk? We need to get you to the healers. As they made their way back to Packlands, Isla was acutely aware of the look she was receiving. Not fear, not this time. Not worship of her power, but gratitude and perhaps the beginnings of trust. That night, Captain Vera approached Isla at the patrol barracks. You disobeyed orders, Vera said flatly. Isa's heart sank. She'd acted on instinct, moved to protect without waiting for commands. I'm sorry, Captain. I saw civilians in danger, and You did exactly what you should have done, Vera interrupted, the ghost of a smile touching her weathered face. Quick thinking, decisive action, putting others before yourself. That's what I need from warriors under my command. You proved today that you're not just powerful. You're reliable in crisis. That matters more than any divine blessing. The praise caught Isla off guard. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet. You've still got 2 weeks before the pack vote. But Vera hesitated, then extended her hand. But you've earned my vote. For what it's worth, Isla shook the offered hand, feeling emotion well up in her throat. It's worth everything, Captain. Thank you. As Vera walked away, Finn approached with a grin. See, I told you they'd come around. Some of them, Isla corrected. There are still plenty who want me gone. Then we keep working, keep proving yourself, keep being exactly who you are. Not the white Luna they fear, but Isla, who risks herself to save others. Finn's expression grew serious. Thomas would be proud. You're becoming exactly what he believed you could be. Isa looked up at the full moon rising over Packlands. Somewhere up there, maybe Thomas was watching. Maybe he knew she was trying her hardest to honor his sacrifice. 2 more weeks, she thought. 2 more weeks to prove I deserve a place here. To show them, the colorless daughter was always worthy. She just needed the chance to prove it. Her wolf stirred contentedly in her mind. No longer separate, but integrated. They were one, now human and beast, mortal and divine, working together toward a common goal. And for the first time since her shift, Isa felt something she'd never experienced before. Hope. Chapter 7. Shadows and Alliances. The remaining 2 weeks should have been straightforward. Isa continued her work with border patrols. Continued proving herself through action rather than authority. More wolves were coming around. Not all, but enough that she could feel the tide slowly turning in her favor. Then the sabotage began. It started small. Isla's patrol assignments would mysteriously change at the last minute, sending her to locations where no rogue activity existed. While actual attacks happened elsewhere, her equipment would go missing. Weapons, communication crystals, even basic supplies. Messages she sent would fail to arrive at their destinations. At first, Isa thought it was coincidence, bad luck. The chaos of a pack still recovering from Celestia's betrayal. But after the 3rd coincidence nearly got her entire squad killed, when they walked into an ambush with faulty information, she knew better. Someone was actively working against her. It's Celeste loyalists, Finn said grimly as they sat in the patrol barracks after another close call. The wolves who benefited from her schemes, who believed in her vision of power. They know if you succeed in earning the pack's trust, their influence disappears completely. But Celeste is in the dungeons awaiting execution. Isla pointed out, what do they gain by sabotaging me now? Revenge? Chaos. Maybe they think if you fail, they can argue for mercy, for Celeste claims she was framed, that the real threat was you all along, Finn grimaced. Or maybe they're just bitter that their chosen Luna turned out to be a murderous traitor and they're taking it out on you. Isla rubbed her temples, exhaustion making her bones ache. Between constant patrols, dealing with sabotage, and maintaining her carefully controlled image, she was stretched to her breaking point. Do we know who they are? Suspicions, not proof. Garrett definitely, he's been openly hostile since Thomas died. A few of the older council members who were close to Celeste. Some warriors who resent that you're earning Captain Vera's respect. Finn leaned forward. But we need to be careful. If we start throwing around accusations without evidence, we'll look paranoid and unstable, exactly what they want. So, we gather evidence. Isa's mind was already working through possibilities. My mental abilities have grown stronger since Thomas and I started training. I can sense emotions from farther away now, sometimes even catch surface thoughts if a wolf isn't guarding them. If I can identify who's sabotaging us and find proof that's credible danger, a new voice interrupted. They both turned to find Grandmother Mora standing in the doorway, her ancient eyes sharp despite her age. Elder Vin stood quickly in respect. We didn't hear you approach. Few do anymore. One benefit of being old, people forget. You can still move quietly. Mora entered the barracks, lowering herself carefully onto a bench. I've been watching the situation develop. Celestia's remaining allies are indeed working against you, Isa. But there's something more troubling at work. What do you mean? Isa asked. Mora pulled out a small leather pouch and emptied its contents onto the table between them. Isa recognized the items immediately. Scraps of dark fur, claws stained with something that looked like dried blood, and small carved stones inscribed with symbols that made her skin crawl. These were found in various locations around Packlands, Mora explained. Hidden in the patrol barracks, buried near the Alpha's residence, concealed in the archives, their shadow magic totems, artifacts designed to spread corruption and discord. Finn palled, but Celeste is locked away. She can't be placing these. No, but her network can. And these totems suggest something worse than simple sabotage. Mora's weathered finger traced one of the symbols. This particular configuration is designed to weaken barriers between our world and the Shadow Realm. If enough of these are placed and activated simultaneously, the Shadow Realm could breach into our territory. Isa finished, horror dawning. Celeste's allies aren't just trying to make me fail. They're trying to tear down the barriers protecting our pack from direct shadow invasion. Precisely, which means Celestia's plan didn't end with her capture. She has contingencies in place, followers who will continue her work even if she's executed. Mora met Uzla's eyes gravely. Child, you need to find and destroy these totems before they're activated. And you need to identify who's placing them before they complete the ritual that would bring shadow corruption directly into Crescent Valley. How much time do we have? Days at most. The full moon is in 3 nights. Shadow magic is strongest under the moon's full light. They'll likely attempt the ritual then. Mora stood slowly. I'm too old to hunt down conspirators, but you with your mental abilities and your wolf's power might be able to sense the corruption these totems carry. Track them to their source. Isa's mind raced. If I'm caught using my abilities to read wolves' minds, even for good reasons, it could backfire. They could claim I'm the threat invading their thoughts. Then don't get caught, Mora said simply. Sometimes, child, doing what's right means taking risks. You've been playing by their rules, trying to prove yourself through conventional means. But your enemies aren't playing fair. Perhaps it's time you reminded them why white Lunas are feared as well as revered. After Mora left, Finn turned to Isla with concern written across his features. She's asking you to become exactly what they fear, a wolf who uses her power to control and manipulate others. She's asking me to use my abilities to protect the pack. Isla corrected. There's a difference between invasion and investigation. I'm not reading minds to control wolves or dig up secrets. I'm trying to prevent a Shadow Realm breach that could kill everyone in Crescent Valley. And if you're wrong, if you invade the wrong wolf's privacy, if someone catches you, if then I fail my trial and get exiled or executed, but at least the pack will be safe. Isa stood, resolution hardening in her chest. Finn, I didn't ask for this power. I didn't ask to be a White Luna or to carry this responsibility, but I have it now, and hiding from it won't protect anyone. Sometimes being strong means using your strength, even when it's scary. Finn studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then I'm coming with you. If you're going rogue, you need backup. If we're caught together, then we're caught together. Thomas died protecting you and exposing the truth. I'm not going to let you face this alone, just because I'm scared of consequences. His expression was determined. Besides, you'll need someone to watch your back while you're concentrating on magical tracking. Gratitude swelled in Isa's chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We might both end up executed for this. But Finn managed a grim smile. At least it won't be boring. They began that night, waiting until the pack settled into sleep before slipping out of their quarters. Isla extended her consciousness carefully, feeling for the dark taint that shadow magic carried. It felt different from normal wolf emotions, cold, oily, wrong, in a way that made her wolf recoil instinctively. There, she whispered, pointing toward the eastern section of Packlands. I can feel something corrupted, like a wound in the fabric of reality. They moved silently through the darkness, Ela following the sensation of wrongness while Finn watched for patrols. The trail led them to a storage building near the training grounds, a place where weapons and equipment were kept. Inside, hidden behind crates of practice weapons, they found 3 more totems. Isa reached for them carefully, feeling the malevolent energy radiating from the carved stones. Don't touch them directly, Finn warned. Use cloth, but it was too late. The moment Isa's fingers brushed the largest totem, power surged through her. Not her own power, but something dark and invasive that tried to latch onto her consciousness. Images flooded her mind. Celeste in the dungeons, not defeated but triumphant, speaking to shadows that moved with intelligence. My sister thinks she's one. Let her believe it. When the moon is full and the totems activate, the shadow army will pour through. They'll slaughter the pack, take my place as true rulers of these lands, and the White Luna will watch everything she tried to save burn. The vision shifted. Garrett, the cruel guard who tormented Isla, placing totems in hidden locations throughout Packlands. Not alone. With him were 3 other wolves. Council member Thorn, a senior warrior named Dax, and surprisingly, one of the pack healers, an older female named Miriam. 30 totems total. Garrett was saying in the memory positioned to create a perfect circle around Packlands. When activated simultaneously, the barriers will shatter and our true masters will arrive. And Celeste Miam asked, 2 will be freed in the chaos. The Shadow King has promised her power beyond imagining. She'll rule not just one pack but all the territories with shadow warriors as her army. Garrett's smile was cruel, and the White Luna will be the first to fall. Isla gasped and jerked her hand away from the totem, breaking the connection. She stumbled backward, and Finn caught her before she fell. What happened? What did you see? Everything. Isa's voice shook. I saw Celestia's backup plan. There are 30 totems total positioned in a circle around our territory. On the full moon, they'll activate simultaneously and breach the barriers between worlds. A shadow army will pour through, kill our pack, and free Celeste to rule over the survivors. 30 totems. Finn looked horrified. We've only found 6, and we have 3 days to find and destroy the rest and identify the conspirators without alerting them that we know. Isa's mind was racing. If they realize we're on to them, They might activate the totems early before we can stop them. Who are they? Did you see? Isa rattled off the names from her vision. Finn's expression grew progressively grimmer with each one. Counselor Thorn is respected, powerful. Dax commands he's one of our largest warrior units. And Miriam, she's the head healer. People trust her implicitly. Finn ran a hand through his hair. Even with proof, bringing accusations against them will be difficult. They have allies, influence. Then we don't bring accusations. Not yet. Ela carefully wrapped the totems in cloth, ensuring she didn't touch them directly again. We find the remaining totems, destroy them, and on the full moon, when they try to activate the ritual, and nothing happens, that's when we expose them. Catch them in the act of attempting treason. That gives them 3 days to potentially discover what we're doing and kill us to stop it, Finn pointed out. I know, but it's our best option. Ela met his eyes. Are you still with me? Finn's answer was to draw his blade. Always. Now, let's go find some more totems before sunrise. The next 3 days were the most intense of Isla's life. During the day, she maintained her normal routine patrols, training, proving herself to skeptical pack members. She smiled, worked hard, and gave no indication that anything was wrong. At night, she and Finn hunted totems. Isa's abilities grew stronger with use. She learned to sense the shadow corruption from farther away, could pinpoint totem locations with increasing accuracy. But each totem she touched gave her flashes of memory, glimpses of Celesta's plans, and exposure to shadow magic that left her feeling contaminated and sick. By the second night, they'd found and destroyed 15 totems halfway there. By the third night, the night before the full moon, they'd located 27. 3 remained hidden, and time was running out. Where would you hide a totem if you wanted it protected above all others? Isa asked as they huddled in the archives. Exhausted and filthy from night searching, Finn thought hard. Somewhere defensible, somewhere only trusted wolves can access. His eyes widened. The Alpha's residence. Or the dungeons. The dungeons. Isa breathed. Of course. Where else would Celestia's allies place the most important totems? Right near their imprisoned leader, where pack members rarely go and the shadows are already deep. But the dungeons are heavily guarded. We can't just walk in without raising suspicion. Isa's jaw set with determination. Then we don't walk in, we get permission. From who? Kieran, you think the Alpha will just let you waltz into the dungeons the night before the full moon on a hunch? Not a hunch, a certainty. Isa stood, her decision made. And yes, I think if I'm honest with Kieran about what we've discovered, he'll listen. He might be cold and calculating, but he's not stupid. When presented with evidence of shadow magic totems and a conspiracy to breach our barriers, he'll act to protect the pack. Or he'll think you're fabricating evidence to attack Celeste's remaining supporters and consolidate your own power. Isla, this could backfire spectacularly. It could. Isla agreed, but we're out of time and options. The full moon rises tomorrow night. If we haven't found and destroyed all 30 totems by then, the ritual completes and everyone in this pack dies. I'll risk Kieran's suspicion to prevent that. Finn stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. You know, when I first spoke up for you at your trial, I thought I was defending a scared, powerless girl who deserved kindness. I'm realizing now that you were never powerless. You were just waiting for the right moment to show everyone what you truly were. And what am I? Isa asked softly. A leader, Finn said simply. Whether you want to be or not, whether they're ready for you or not, you're exactly what this pack needs, someone willing to risk everything to do what's right, regardless of personal cost. His words settled over Isla like a mantle, heavy, significant, terrifying. Then let's go talk to the Alpha, she said, and hope he's ready to believe the impossible. Alpha Kieran's residence was impressive. A large stone structure at the heart of Packlands that spoke of power and permanence. Guards stood at attention at the entrance, their eyes widening when they saw Isla and Finn approaching in the late-night hours. "We need to speak with the Alpha," Isla said clearly. "It's urgent, a matter of pack security." "The Alpha is not receiving visitors at this hour," one guard responded, though his tone was less hostile than it might have been weeks ago. Isa's actions on patrols had earned grudging respect even from wolves who didn't fully trust her. "He'll want to hear this," Isa pressed. "Tell him Isa Thornwood has discovered a shadow magic conspiracy that threatens the entire pack. If he refuses to see me, the blood of every wolf in Crescent Valley will be on his hands." The guards exchanged glances. Finally, the senior of the two nodded. "Wait here. I'll inform the Alpha." 5-10 minutes later, they were ushered inside to Kieran's private study. The Alpha sat behind a massive desk carved from dark wood, his expression unreadable as they entered. "This had better be genuine," Kieran said without preamble. "If you're wasting my time or fabricating crisis to manipulate your trial outcome, look at these." Isla dumped the cloth-wrapped totems onto his desk. 27 shadow magic artifacts hidden throughout pack territory, set to activate tomorrow night under the full moon. If they all trigger simultaneously, they'll breach the barriers between our world and the shadow realm. An army of corrupted creatures will pour through, slaughter our pack, and free Celeste to rule over whatever's left. Kieran stared at the totems, his expression carefully controlled, but Isa caught the flash of shock, then fury in his dark eyes. "Where did you find these?" "Hidden in storage buildings, patrol stations. Even the archives placed by Celestia's remaining loyalists, Garrett, Counselor Thorne, Dax, and Miriam." Isla met his gaze steadily. "I know accusing respected pack members is serious, but I've seen their involvement through visions when I touch the totems. Shadow magic leaves imprints, memories. I can prove everything I'm saying by using your abilities to read artifacts and possibly invade others' minds." Kieran's voice was sharp. "Exactly the kind of power people fear from a white Luna." "Yes," Isa said simply. "I used my abilities because the alternative was letting 30 shadow totems activate and kill everyone I'm trying to protect. If that makes me dangerous, so be it. But I'd rather be dangerous and save lives than safe and watch people die." Kieran studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed short and bitter. "You really are nothing like your sister. Celeste would have used this information as leverage, would have manipulated the situation for maximum political gain. You just lay it all out and accept the consequences." "I don't have time for manipulation. The full moon is tomorrow night." Isla leaned forward. "We've destroyed 27 totems. 3 remain. I believe they're hidden in the dungeons near where Celeste is imprisoned. But I can't access that area without your permission. And if I refuse, if I decide this is all an elaborate ploy to gain access to sensitive areas, then tomorrow night the barriers fall, shadows pour through, and you can comfort yourself with the knowledge that you maintained protocol while everyone died." Isa's voice was hard. "I'm not asking you to trust me, Alpha. I'm asking you to look at the evidence and make the logical choice. Either I'm telling the truth and we stop this tonight, or I'm lying and you can execute me tomorrow for treason. Either way, you lose nothing by checking the dungeons." Kieran was silent for another long moment. Then he stood, his decision made. "Finn, you'll remain here. If this is a trap, you're my hostage," ensuring Isla's cooperation. He moved toward the door. "Isa, you're with me. We're going to the dungeons. And if you're wrong, if this is manipulation or false accusation, I will personally see your execution before the full moon rises." "Understood," Isla said steadily. "Let's go." As they left Finn behind, his expression torn between concern and trust, Isa sent one final thought to her friend through their mental link. "If this goes wrong, tell everyone the truth. Tell them I tried. Tell them." Thomas's sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Finn's response came immediately. "It won't go wrong. You're too stubborn to fail now." Isla hoped he was right, because in a few minutes she'd either save her pack or condemn herself beyond redemption, and there was no turning back now. Chapter 8. The Dungeon's Truth. The dungeons beneath pack territory were even more oppressive than Isla remembered from her brief imprisonment. Each step down the narrow stone staircase felt like descending into something that predated Crescent Valley itself. Ancient stones slick with moisture, air thick with the weight of suffering and despair. Alpha Kieran moved ahead of her, his posture tense and alert. He hadn't spoken since they left his residence, and Isa couldn't read his emotions clearly. The Alpha had decades of practice, shielding his thoughts and feelings from empathic wolves. 2 guards stood at attention at the dungeon entrance. Wolves Isa didn't recognize, but who stiffened when they saw their Alpha approaching with the white Luna in tow. "Open the way," Kieran commanded. "We're conducting an inspection." "Alpha, it's past midnight. Protocol states." "I don't care what protocol states." "Open now." The guards complied, though their expression suggested they thought their Alpha had lost his mind bringing Isa Thornwood into the dungeons in the dead of night. The corridor beyond was lined with cells, most empty, but a few containing prisoners rogues captured during raids. Wolves who'd committed serious crimes. At the very end, in the deepest, most secure cell, sat Celeste. Ela's sister looked diminished from her imprisonment. Her golden hair was matted and dull. Her beautiful face gaunt, but her eyes, those cold blue eyes, still blazed with intelligence and hatred as Isa and Kieran approached. "Well, well," Celestia's voice was horsarse but cutting. "The loving couple comes to visit. How sweet. Have you come to gloat, dear sister? To show me how thoroughly you've stolen everything I worked for." "I've stolen nothing," Isla said quietly. "I'm just trying to protect what you tried to destroy." Touching, Celeste's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Tell me, Kieran, has she seduced you yet? Used her divine feminine use to make you forget that she's a colorless aberration who should have been drowned at birth?" "Enough." Kieran's voice cracked like a whip. "Your execution is scheduled for 3 days from now. I suggest you spend your remaining time making peace with the goddess rather than spewing venom." "The goddess?" Celeste laughed, bitter and unhinged. "The goddess abandoned me the moment she gave the white Luna blessing to her instead of me. I was perfect, beautiful, strong, everything a Luna should be. But no divine favor goes to the weak, the broken, the worthless. So I found new gods to serve. Gods who appreciate real power." Her words confirmed everything Isa had seen in her visions. Celeste had fully embraced shadow corruption, had bargained with entities from beyond their realm. "Where are the totems?" Isla asked directly. "The 3 you have hidden down here. Where are they?" Celeste's expression flickered. Surprise quickly masked. "I don't know what you're talking about. You're a terrible liar." Isa closed her eyes, extending her senses. The shadow corruption down here was thick, making it hard to isolate individual totem locations, but their faint pulses of dark energy, hidden but present there. Behind the wall across from her cell, and there beneath the floor near the guard station. And the third, her eyes snapped open, fixing on Celeste. "Inside your cell, you've been guarding one personally." Celeste's smile turned vicious. "Clever girl, but it won't matter. Even if you destroy the totems. My followers know the ritual. They'll find another way. Shadow always finds a way. Not if we stop them first." Kieran gestured to the guards who'd followed them down. "Search her cell. Search every cell. Find these totems and bring them to me now." The guards moved quickly, pulling keys to unlock Celeste's cell, despite her snarling protests. Isa turned her attention to the other locations she'd sensed. "Alpha, the wall, that section there." She pointed to what looked like solid stone. "There's a hidden compartment. I can feel the corruption radiating from it." Kieran examined the wall, his experienced fingers finding irregularities in the stonework that Isa would have missed. With surprising strength, he pressed specific points in sequence. A section of wall swung inward, revealing a small, hollow space. Inside sat a totem larger than the others they'd found, carved from what looked like bone rather than stone, inscribed with symbols that seemed to writhe and shift when looked at directly. "Don't touch it," Isa warned as Kieran reached for the artifact. "The corruption transfers on contact." "Let me." But Kieran had already grasped the totem. His body went rigid, his eyes rolling back as visions slammed into him the way they had Isla when she'd first touched the artifacts. Isla grabbed his arm, steadying him, and through their contact, she caught fragments of what he was seeing. Celeste, months before her exposure, meeting with something that wasn't quite wolf and wasn't quite human. A creature of pure shadow, promising power, promising armies, promising dominion over all the packs. If only she would serve. Celeste, accepting that bargain, allowing shadow corruption to seep into her soul in exchange for enhanced strength and dark magic abilities. Celeste recruiting followers, promising them power, wealth, positions of authority in her new order. Garrett seeking revenge for past slights. Thorn hungry for influence. Dax and Miriam both corrupted by promises of immortality. And the planned 30 totems to breach the barriers. A shadow army to slaughter pack leadership. Celeste freed to rule over the survivors with shadow entities as her true masters. Kieran gasped and released the totem, staggering backward. Isa caught him before he could fall. "You saw it," she said quietly. "Everything I told you was true." I saw Kieran's voice was rough with shock and fury. I saw the wolf I chose as my mate bargaining with entities that should never be contacted. I saw her plot to murder our entire pack. I saw respected council members and warriors pledge themselves to shadow corruption. He looked at Isa with something approaching horror. How did I miss it? How did I not see what she was becoming? She was careful, skilled at deception. And you saw what you wanted to see. A perfect Luna who would help you rule. Isa said it without judgment, just stating facts. We all missed it until it was nearly too late. The guards emerged from Celeste's cell carrying another totem, this one wrapped in cloth that looked like it was stained with old blood. Found it under her sleeping pallet. "Alpha," one guard reported, and there's writing on the walls. Shadow language. Looks like she's been conducting rituals even while imprisoned. Kieran's expression turned to stone. Burn those writings immediately and double her guard. If she's been performing shadow magic from inside her cell, she's more dangerous than we realized. You can't stop what's coming. Celeste called out from her cell. Her voice sings song and wrong. The totems are just one method. Shadow has infinite patience, infinite paths. It will consume your pack eventually. All I did was choose to ride the wave rather than drown beneath it. The third totem, Isa said urgently, pushing aside Celeste's ravings. It's beneath the floor near the guard station. It took 10 minutes of prying up stones, but they found it buried in a hollow beneath the dungeon's foundation, wrapped in cloth that disintegrated at the touch. This totem was different from the others, smaller, darker, radiating such intense corruption that even the guards recoiled from it. This is the anchor, Ela realized, the central totem that would coordinate all the others. Destroying this one might disrupt the entire network. Then destroy it, Kieran commanded. It's not that simple. Isa studied the artifact carefully. Shadow magic is parasitic. If we just smash it, the corruption could spread into the surrounding area, contaminate the dungeon, possibly even infect nearby wolves. We need to purify it first. How? Isla closed her eyes, reaching for her wolf. The White Luna blessing wasn't just power. It was divine light, the moon goddess's direct touch. If anything could counter shadow corruption, it would be that. Can we cleanse this? She asked her wolf. We can try, her wolf responded. But it will hurt. Shadow and divine light are opposites. Forcing them to meet is like touching fire to ice. Both will react violently. Do it anyway. Isa placed her hands on the totem, and immediately agony lanced through her. The shadow corruption fought her presence, trying to burrow into her consciousness to corrupt her the way it had corrupted Celeste. But her wolf's presence surged forward, white light blazing through Isa's body and into the artifact. The totem began to smoke, then to glow dark energy, wearing with divine light in a battle visible to everyone watching. Isa gritted her teeth against the pain, forcing more power into the cleansing. She could feel the shadow entities on the other side of the barrier, could sense their rage as she destroyed their anchor point. Not welcome here, she projected with all her strength. This pack is under my protection. Find another hunting ground. The totem cracked, then shattered. Dark smoke billowed out, dissipating harmlessly as it met the divine light still radiating from Isla's hands. When it was over, only dust remained where the totem had been. Isla collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her hands burned where she'd touched the artifact. Kieran knelt beside her. "Are you fine?" Isla managed. "Just need a moment. The other two totems. We need to destroy them the same way. You can barely stand. Let someone else. It has to be me. White Luna purification. No one else has that ability." Isa forced herself upright, swaying slightly. "But we need to hurry. It's almost dawn. We have 1 day to find the conspirators and prepare for tomorrow night. If any of them realize we've destroyed the totems, they might try something desperate." Kieran nodded slowly, his expression a mixture of respect and concern. "You're right. But first, you're going to the healers. Those burns need treatment. The healers are compromised. Miriam is one of the conspirators, then one of the junior healers, someone we can trust." Kieran stood, offering his hand to help Ella up. "You've proven yourself tonight, White Luna. Whatever doubts I had about you are gone. You risked yourself to save this pack. That's not the action of a threat. It's the action of a true Luna." The words should have felt like victory. Instead, they felt like a weight settling on Isla's shoulders. The title she'd been trying to earn suddenly felt very real and very heavy. "I'm not trying to take Celestia's place," Isla said quietly. "I'm not trying to be your mate or Luna of this pack through political maneuvering." "I know," Kieran said, surprising her. "You're trying to earn acceptance as a pack member. Respect as a person, not worship as a divine figure. But Isla, you need to understand something. The pack doesn't need another member. We have plenty of those. What we've been lacking is a Luna who genuinely cares about the wolf she leads. Someone who will risk herself to protect others, who will use power for defense rather than domination." He met her eyes, and for the first time, Isla saw the man beneath the alpha authority, tired, betrayed, trying desperately to hold together a pack, fractured by treason. "I'm not asking you to be my mate," Kieran continued. "That would be inappropriate on multiple levels. And frankly, neither of us wants that kind of complication. But I am asking you to consider that earning acceptance and claiming your rightful position aren't mutually exclusive. You can be Isa and the White Luna. You can be both." Before Isla could respond, shouting erupted from above. The guards at the dungeon entrance were calling down an alarm. "Alpha, the pack is under attack." Rogues at the southern border, dozens of them. Kieran's expression hardened. It started. The conspirators must have realized we found the totems. They're forcing a confrontation now rather than waiting for tomorrow. Or, Isa said grimly, this was always part of the plan. Attack from outside while shadow corruption weakens us from within. A coordinated assault from multiple fronts. They raced up the stairs, emerging into chaos. Warriors were scrambling to arm themselves, civilians were being herded to safe houses, and in the distance, howls of combat echoed through the pre-dawn darkness. Captain Vera appeared, her expression grim. "Alpha, it's bad. At least 40 rogues. All shadow corrupted. They're hitting the southern border in coordinated waves. This isn't a raid, it's an invasion. Mobilize all combat units," Kieran commanded. "Full defensive formation. Protect the civilians first. Then push the rogues back beyond our territory line and the totems." Isla asked urgently. We still have 2 more to destroy. If the attack is a distraction, then we deal with both threats simultaneously. Karen turned to Vera. Captain, you have field command. Coordinate the defense. Isa and I will handle the remaining totems and the traitors within our ranks. Vera looked shocked. Alpha, with respect, you should be leading the defense, not chasing conspirators in our own territory. Captain, if we don't stop the shadow corruption from within, it won't matter if we win this battle. The rot will spread and consume us eventually. Kieran's voice was iron-hard authority. I'm trusting you to defend our pack. Trust me to cut out the cancer trying to destroy us from inside. Vera hesitated, then saluted sharply. Yes, Alpha, we'll hold the line. As warriors streamed toward the southern border, Kieran turned to Isa. The remaining totems. Where are they? Isla closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses despite her exhaustion. The shadow corruption was harder to detect now. Whether because the destruction of the anchor totem had weakened the network, or because the chaos of battle was drowning out her abilities, she couldn't tell. But they're faint but present. 2 pulses of dark energy, both in locations that made terrible sense. The council chambers, Ela breathed, and the Alpha's residence. They hid totems in the 2 most secure, most symbolic locations in packed territory. Kieran's jaw clenched, bold, and it means the conspirators have access to areas most wolves can't reach. High-ranking positions, trusted individuals, Counselor Thorne, for the council chambers, and for your residence. Isa's eyes widened with horrified understanding. Garrett, he was assigned to your personal guard rotation last month. Celeste arranged it so her loyalists would have access to plant totems exactly where they'd do the most damage. Then we split up, Kieran decided. I'll take the council chambers. You take my residence. Alpha? If we split up and the conspirators are there, then we fight them and destroy the totems simultaneously. Isa, we're out of time. The sun is rising. We have shadow-corrupted rogues invading from outside and traitors sabotaging from within. We can't afford caution anymore. He was right, and Ela knew it. But the thought of facing Garrett alone, the cruel guard who tormented her, who was likely backed by other corrupted wolves, sent fear racing through her veins. We are not alone, her wolf reminded her. We are the White Luna. We are divine light made flesh, and we will not fail. Okay, Isla said, steadying herself. Council chambers for you, your residence for me. We destroy the totems, expose the traitors, and end this before the full moon rises tonight. Kieran nodded, already moving toward the council building, but he paused, looking back at ISO one final time. Whatever happens, whether you choose to stay as our Luna or leave when this is over, thank you for caring enough to fight for a pack that treated you terribly. That takes more strength than any divine blessing could provide. Then he was gone, running toward his destination, while Isla turned toward his residence and the confrontation that awaited her there. The sun was crusting the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, beautiful and ominous like blood and fire mixing in the clouds. Red sky at morning, the old saying went. Sailors take warning, or in this case, White Lunas take warning because Issa was about to walk into a trap and they both knew it. But she went anyway because that's what leaders did. They walked into danger so others wouldn't have to. And whether she wanted the title or not, whether she'd earned it or not, Isla was beginning to understand that she'd been a leader all along. She'd just been waiting for a pack worth leading. Chapter 9. The Blood Moon Rising. The Alpha's residence stood silent and imposing in the growing dawn light. Too silent. No guards at the entrance. No servants moving through the grounds preparing for the day. Just emptiness that radiated menace like heat from a forge. Isla approached cautiously, every sense alert. Her wolf prowled restlessly through her consciousness, fur bristling with awareness of danger. The shadow corruption was stronger here, thick enough to taste. A cloying darkness that clung to her skin like oil. They're waiting for us, her wolf warned. It's a trap. I know, Isla responded. But we don't have a choice. The totem needs to be destroyed before tonight. She pushed open the heavy wooden door, and it swung inward with an ominous creak. The entrance hall beyond was dim. Despite the morning light, shadows seeming to writhe in corners where sunlight should have banished them. Hello, colorless. Garrett stepped out from behind a pillar, and Isa's breath caught. The guard looked wrong. His eyes glowed faintly red in the dimness. His skin had taken on a grayish cast, and when he smiled, his teeth seemed too sharp, too many shadow corruption, advanced stages. From the look of it, Garrett had fully embraced whatever dark bargain Celeste had offered. Garrett. Ela kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. You know this is over, right? We've destroyed the totem network. The barriers won't fall. Your shadow army can't breach into our world, can't they? Garrett's laugh was wrong, layered with harmonics that made Isa's skin crawl. You found 30 totems. But did you really think that was all? That we put all our faith in one ritual, one method? Cold dread settled in Isa's stomach. How many more? Enough. Garrett began to circle her. Predatory and confident, scattered throughout the forest surrounding Packlands, buried in locations you'll never find before tonight. And tonight, when the blood moon rises— Blood moon, Isa interrupted. The calendar shows a normal full moon. The calendar lies, or rather, it's incomplete. Every 50 years, the moon turns red, a cosmic alignment that amplifies shadow magic 1,000-fold. Tonight is that alignment. Tonight, the barriers between worlds grow thin enough that we won't need 30 totems. We'll need only 3. His smile widened. And we still have 3 totems you haven't found. One here, one in the council chambers, and one buried so deep in the forest, so thoroughly hidden that even your white Luna senses won't detect it. Then why tell me this? Isa demanded. Why give me information I could use to stop you? Because you won't leave this building alive to use it. Garrett's form began to shift not into wolf, but into something else, something that was never meant to exist in their world. The shadows have blessed me, colorless, made me stronger than any natural wolf, and they've given me a gift, the honor of killing the white Luna, who dared interfere with our goddess's plans. He lunged, and Isla barely had time to shift. Her massive white wolf met Garrett's corrupted form in a collision that shook the building's foundation. He was strong unnaturally so, his shadow-enhanced body hitting with force that should have been impossible. They tumbled through the entrance hall, slamming into walls, destroying furniture, locked in combat that was more than just physical. It was ideological. Divine light against shadow corruption. Natural order against artificial enhancement. Everything Isla represented versus everything Garrett had become. He's faster than he should be. Isa's wolf noted as Garrett's claws rat across her shoulder, drawing blood. The corruption gives him speed and strength, beyond his natural limits, but it also makes him reckless, Ela observed. Garrett was fighting with the confidence of someone who believed themselves invincible, leaving openings a trained warrior would never allow. Isa waited for one such opening, Garrett overextending on a lunge and struck. Her massive jaws closed on his corrupted arm, and she twisted, using her superior size to throw him across the room. He slammed into a stone pillar hard enough to crack it. You're strong, Garrett wheezed, pulling himself upright. I'll give you that colorless, but strength isn't enough. You're still the weak girl who couldn't keep up in training, who was mocked by everyone who had to be locked away, because you couldn't control your own wolf. Shadow saw what you really are, a coward hiding behind divine blessing you don't deserve. The words were designed to hurt, to provoke an emotional reaction that would make Isla sloppy. And a month ago, they might have worked, but Isla had spent the past weeks learning who she really was. Not the colorless daughter they'd mocked, not the dangerous white Luna they'd feared, but someone in between, strong enough to protect others, humble enough to ask for help, and wise enough to know that words from a corrupted traitor carried no weight. "He's trying to distract us," her wolf said. "Keep us focused on him while something else. Understanding hit like lightning." "You're not alone here." Garrett's smile confirmed it a second before 3 more corrupted wolves emerged from doorways around the hall. Isla recognized one Dax, the senior warrior. The other 2 were younger wolves she'd seen around Packlands, but didn't know personally. All bore the signs of shadow corruption, red eyes, grayish skin, movements that were slightly wrong in ways that made her instincts scream danger. 4 against 1, Garrett said pleasantly. "Even a white Luna has limits. You're about to discover yours." They attacked simultaneously, coordinated and vicious. Isa's massive form gave her advantages in reach and power, but against 4 opponents who had abandoned natural wolf instincts in favor of shadow-enhanced aggression, those advantages rapidly diminished. Claws and teeth tore at her from multiple angles. Isla fought back desperately, her divine light burning where it touched corrupted flesh, but for every wound she inflicted, she received 2 in return. "We're going to die here," part of her whispered. "We're going to fail, and tonight the barriers will fall and the pack will be slaughtered." "No." Her wolf's presence surged forward with fury that burned like the sun. "We are the White Luna. We carry the moon goddess's blessing. We do not fall to corrupted half-wolves who sold their souls for power they couldn't earn." Power exploded from Isa's form. Pure divine light that blazed through the entrance hall like a physical force. The corrupted wolves shrieked and recoiled, their shadow-touched bodies smoking where the light hit them. Isa pressed her advantage. She was larger, stronger, and now fueled by righteous fury that wouldn't be denied. She caught Dax by the throat and slammed him into the ground hard enough to crack stone. One of the younger wolves lunged at her back. She spun and caught him mid-leap, her jaws closing on his corrupted form and shaking him like a ragged doll before tossing him aside. But Garrett and the remaining corrupted wolf attacked in tandem, working with the coordination of fighters who'd trained together. Garrett went for her legs while the other went high, trying to tear at her throat. Isla twisted, taking the throat attack on her heavily muscled shoulder instead, and kicked out with her powerful hind legs. She caught Garrett squarely in the chest, sending him flying backward through a doorway into what looked like a study. The totem, Isa could feel it now. The pulse of shadow corruption emanating from that room where Garrett had landed. The totem was in there, likely the reason they'd chosen this location for their ambush. "Get the totem," she commanded herself. "Destroy it while they're down." She bounded toward the study, but the remaining upright corrupted wolf threw himself in her path. Isla barreled through him, her size advantage, letting her simply steamroll over his resistance, but it cost her precious seconds. Garrett was already on his feet when she entered the study, and he'd positioned himself between Isla and an ornate wooden box sitting on a desk near the window. "Not so fast, Colorless," he snarled. "You want the totem? You'll have to go through me." And this time he pulled out a silver blade, the metal gleaming wickedly in the growing daylight. "I brought insurance. Silver, the one material that could seriously harm werewolves, that bypassed their healing and caused agonizing pain. One good strike with that blade could even a White Luna." "We need to shift," Isla realized. "Fight him, human to human. Our wolf form is too large a target for that blade." She shifted rapidly, her white wolf dissolving into her human form in seconds. Garrett looked momentarily surprised by the speed and control of her transformation, but recovered quickly. "Brave," he acknowledged. "Or stupid. Either way, you're about to." Isla didn't let him finish. She grabbed a heavy book from a nearby shelf and hurled it at his face. While he was dodging, she closed the distance between them and struck, not with supernatural power or divine blessing, but with 18 years of suppressed rage. Finally, finding an outlet, her fist connected with Garrett's jaw, snapping his head back. He slashed with the silver blade, forcing her to dive and roll. She came up next to a chair, grabbed it, and swung it like a club. The chair connected with Garrett's arm, sending the silver blade clattering across the floor. They grappled, human to human, both of them knowing whoever reached that blade first would likely win this fight. Garrett was larger, stronger from years of warrior training, but Isla was fueled by something more powerful than muscle. The accumulated fury of everyone who'd ever been dismissed, mocked, told they were worthless and weak and broken. She was fighting for Thomas, who died believing in her. For every wolf currently defending the southern border against shadow, corrupted rogues, for the pack that had hurt her, but that she'd chosen to protect anyway, and for herself, the colorless daughter, who'd finally learned she was worth fighting for. Isa's knee came up sharply, catching Garrett in the ribs. As he doubled over, she brought her elbow down on the back of his neck. He collapsed, gasping, and Isa dove for the silver blade. Her fingers closed around the hilt just as Garrett tackled her from behind. They rolled across the floor, struggling for control of the weapon. The blade came dangerously close to Isla's throat, then her chest. Garrett's corrupted strength gradually overwhelming her. "You're weak," he hissed in her ear. "You've always been weak. Divine blessing doesn't change what you are. A pathetic girl who never should have survived to adulthood. You're right." Isa gasped out and saw a surprise flicker across Garrett's face. "I was weak. I spent 18 years being what everyone said I was: forgettable, worthless, barely worth keeping alive." She managed to shift her weight, getting her legs under Garrett's torso. "But you know what I learned these past weeks?" Isa's voice grew stronger. "Weakness isn't about power. It's about giving up, about letting others define you, about believing the lies they tell." She kicked up and out, using Garrett's own momentum against him. He flew over her head, slamming into the wall near the window. Isla rolled to her feet, the silver blade now firmly in her grip. "And I'm done believing lies. I'm done letting people like you tell me what I am." She moved toward the wooden box on the desk, toward the totem, radiating shadow corruption. Garrett lunged at her one final time, desperation overriding strategy. Isa didn't think. She just reacted. The silver blade plunged into Garrett's chest, right through where shadow corruption had replaced his natural heart with something dark and wrong. Garrett's eyes went wide, his corrupted form convulsed, shadow energy bleeding out around the silver, embedded in his chest. When he spoke, his voice was layered, both his own and something else, something ancient and malevolent that had been controlling him. You've killed me. But it doesn't matter." Blood black and oily leaked from his mouth. "The blood moon rises tonight. Everything ends. Everything begins." He collapsed, the corruption bleeding out of him in wisps of dark smoke that dissipated in the morning light streaming through the windows. Isla stood over him, trembling with adrenaline and the aftermath of violence. She'd killed before rogues in battle. Threats to the pack, but never someone she'd known, never someone who'd once been pack, however cruel. "He made his choice," her wolf said gently. "He chose shadow over pack, corruption over loyalty. His death is not on your conscience." Isla nodded numbly and turned to the wooden box. Her hands shook as she opened it, revealing the totem inside larger than most they'd found, carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. She placed her hands on it, calling on her divine light despite her exhaustion. The purification was agonizing. Shadow corruption fighting back with desperate fury, knowing this was one of only 3 remaining anchors for tonight's ritual. The totem cracked, shattered, dissolved into harmless dust. 2 totems remained. One in the council chambers where Kieran was hopefully dealing with Councillor Thorne, and one hidden in the forest, location unknown, waiting for tonight's blood moon to fulfill its purpose. Isla shifted back to wolf form. It was becoming easier each time, almost effortless now, and bounded out of the Alpha's residence. The corrupted wolves she'd fought earlier were gone, either fled or dead. She didn't have time to check which the sun was fully up now, painting pack lands in golden light that seemed to mock the darkness they were fighting. In the distance, she could still hear sounds of combat from the southern border. The rogue attack was ongoing, keeping the PS warriors occupied while the real threat prepared for tonight. Isla ran toward the council building, her massive white form drawing startled looks from pack members, preparing defenses or tending to wounded. Let them stare. Let them wonder. She had more important things to worry about than public opinion. She burst into the council building to find it eerily quiet. No guards, no attendants, no signs of the activity that usually filled these halls. "Kieran," she called out, her wolf voice echoing off stone walls. "Alpha, are you here?" No response. Isa followed the trail of shadow corruption, letting it guide her toward the main council chamber. The doors stood open, and what she saw beyond made her heart sink. The chamber was destroyed. Furniture overturned, walls scored with claw marks, blood splattered across the ancient stone floor. And in the center of it all stood Counselor Thorn, or what had once been Counselor Thorn. The elderly wolf had fully embraced shadow corruption, transforming into something barely recognizable as wolf or human. His form was massive, twisted, wrong in ways that made Isla's eyes hurt to process. Red eyes blazed with malevolent intelligence, and when he smiled, his mouth opened far too wide, revealing rows of shadow-crafted teeth, and held in his massive clawed hands, struggling but unable to break free, was Alpha Kieran. "Ah, the white Luna arrives." Thorn's voice was layered with harmonics that suggested multiple beings speaking in unison. "Just in time to watch your Alpha die and your pack fall to shadow." "Let him go," Isla demanded, her wolf form tensing for attack. "This is between you and me, Thorn. He's not part of." "He's part of everything," Thorn roared, and the windows shattered from the force of his voice. He chose Celeste as his mate. Gave her access to power and influence. He ignored the signs of corruption because he was blinded by beauty and ambition. He's as responsible for this pack's fall as anyone. Kieran struggled in Thorn's grip, his face twisted with pain. Isla could see blood seeping from wounds where those shadow claws dug into his sides. "Besides," Thorn continued, his tone becoming almost conversational, "I need him alive for the ritual. Alpha blood spilled at the moment of the blood moon's rising will amplify the final totem's power, a 100-fold. His death will ensure the barriers fall completely and permanently." Rather poetic, don't you think? The Alpha who failed to protect his pack becomes the sacrifice that destroys it. "The totem," Isla said, understanding. "You have it. The third totem is here." "Oh, much better than that." Thorn gestured with his free hand, and Alas' attention was drawn to the floor. Someone had a massive circle in the ancient stone, inscribed with shadow symbols that pulsed with dark energy. And at 7 points around that circle sat totems, not 3, not 30, but 7 of the largest, most corruption-saturated artifacts Isla had yet seen. "You destroyed the decoys," Thorn said with satisfaction. "The 30 minor totems we scattered around Packlands to keep you busy, to make you think you were winning. But these," he indicated, "the 7 around the ritual circle. These are the real anchors crafted over years, infused with blood and shadow magic, positioned to align with the blood moon's energy. And at midnight tonight, when the moon turns red, and alpha blood feeds the circle, these will tear the barriers under." Isa's mind raced, calculating odds. 7 totems, each as powerful as the anchor totem she'd struggled to destroy. Thorn in his corrupted form, enhanced beyond natural limits. Kieran wounded and trapped, unable to help. And hours until midnight, when everything they'd fought for would end in blood and shadow. "You can't destroy them all," Thorn said, reading her expression. "Not before tonight. Not without killing the alpha in the process, since I'll snap his neck the moment you move against the totems." "You're trapped, White Luna." Checkmate. He was right. Isla could feel the truth of it settling over her like chains. Unless what if I offered you a trade? Isa slowly. A trade? Thorn's laugh was like breaking glass. What could you possibly offer that would interest Shadow itself? Isa met his red eyes steadily. Me, my life for his. The white Luna's divine essence freely given absorbed into your ritual. That much divine power would supercharge your totems beyond anything Alpha Blood could provide. You could breach not just the barriers around Crescent Valley, but potentially barriers across multiple pack territories. Instant domination of the entire region. Kieran's eyes went wide with horror. Isla. No, think about it. Isla pressed on. Kill him and you get a small boost for your ritual. Take me and you get access to power that hasn't walked this world in 500 years. The shadows would reward you beyond imagining for bringing them a white Luna sacrifice. Thorn was silent. Considering Isla could almost see the calculations happening behind those corrupted eyes. You'd surrender willingly, he asked. Submit to ritual sacrifice. If you release Kieran and swear not to harm him or pursue him after the trade is made, let him go to defend the pack during tonight's barrier breach. Let him die in battle as an alpha should, not as a sacrifice to shadow magic. That's not much of a mercy. He'll die regardless when the shadow army pours through, maybe. But he'll die fighting, which is more than you're offering him now. Isla took a step forward. So, what's it worth to you, Thorn? Petty revenge on an alpha you feel failed you? Or the chance to deliver a white Luna's divine essence to your dark masters? The silence stretched, tension mounting, until it felt like the air itself might shatter. Then Thorn smiled wide and terrible and victorious deal. He released Kieran, who collapsed to the floor, gasping. Before the alpha could react, Thorn moved with supernatural speed, closing the distance to Isla and clamping one massive clawed hand around her throat. No tricks, Thorn hissed. No last-minute rescues. You've bargained yourself into Shadow's embrace, White Luna. And when midnight comes, your light will be extinguished forever. Isa met Kieran's horrified gaze as Thorn began dragging her toward the ritual circle. I'm sorry, she tried to project to him mentally, but this is the only way. Tell Finn, tell everyone, I tried. Then Thorn shoved her into the center of the ritual circle, and the totems flared to life. Shadow chains, not physical but magical, wrapped around Isla's wolf form, binding her in place. The corruption burned where it touched her divine light, but the totem's power was too great. She was trapped, held at the center of a ritual designed to consume her entirely. Perfect, Thorn breathed. By midnight, everything will be ready. The blood moon will rise. The white Luna will burn, and Shadow will reign eternal. He turned and began to walk away, dismissing both Isa and Kieran as threats now neutralized. And Isla, trapped in shadow chains at the center of a ritual circle, began to plan. Because Thorn had made a critical mistake, he'd assumed a white Luna's light could be extinguished by shadow. But light didn't extinguish. It transformed. And Isla had been transforming ever since that day in the arena, when they'd forced her to shift and discovered she was so much more than they'd believed. Tonight, Thorn and his shadow masters would learn what happened when you tried to consume divine light. Tonight, they'd learn that some transformations were more dangerous than they could possibly imagine. Tonight, the blood moon would rise, and when it did, Isa would show them all exactly what a white Luna was truly capable of. Chapter 10. The White Luna Ascends. The hours between dawn and midnight felt like an eternity compressed into moments. Isa remained trapped in the ritual circle, shadow chains burning against her divine essence, while Thorn departed to make final preparations. Kieran had been dragged out by corrupted guards alive, as promised, but wounded and helpless to intervene in what was coming. The council chamber fell silent except for the pulse of dark energy from the 7 totems. Isa's massive white wolf form was forced into a kneeling position, head bowed as if the shadows themselves were demanding her submission. They think they've won, her wolf observed. They think we're trapped. We are trapped, Isa responded. These chains are powerful. I can't break them without destroying myself in the process. Then we don't break them, we use them. Isla pondered that the shadow chains were designed to contain divine light to prevent her from calling on the moon goddess's power. But containment was just redirection energy pressed down, compressed, forced inward rather than allowed to radiate outward. What happened when you compressed divine light beyond its natural limits? When you forced a sun's worth of power into the space of a candle flame explosion, Isa realized or transformation so intense it becomes something new entirely. The shadows are building us into a bomb they plan to detonate at midnight, her wolf said. But bombs can be aimed. They can be weaponized against those who created them. For the first time since Thorn had trapped her, Isla felt something besides fear. She felt possibility outside the council building. The pack was in chaos. The rogue attack on the southern border had intensified throughout the morning, with wave after wave of shadow, corrupted wolves throwing themselves at Crescent Valley's defenses. Captain Vera's warriors were holding, but barely, and casualties were mounting. Word of the Alpha's wounding and the White Luna's capture had spread through packlands like wildfire, demoralizing defenders who'd been counting on their strongest wolves to turn the tide. Finn Riverside stood with his squad near the southern defensive line, his face grim as another wave of rogues broke against their shields. We can't hold much longer. One of his warriors gasped, bleeding from multiple wounds. There are too many. They just keep coming. Then we keep fighting, Finn said firmly, though his own body screamed with exhaustion. Isla sacrificed herself to buy us time. We don't waste that gift by giving up. Time for what? Another warrior demanded. The White Luna is trapped. The Alpha is wounded. What exactly are we buying time for? Our own deaths. Finn wanted to argue, wanted to offer hope, but the words caught in his throat. What was the point of holding the line if Shadow was going to breach the barriers at midnight anyway? What was the point of fighting if they'd already lost? A flash of white in his peripheral vision made him turn. There at the edge of the battlefield stood Grandmother Mora. The ancient elder shouldn't be here. She should be safely evacuated with the other non-combatants, but she stood tall despite her age, her weathered face calm as she surveyed the carnage. Elder. Finn rushed to her side. You need to get to safety. This area I'm exactly where I need to be, Mora interrupted. She placed one gnarled hand on his chest right over his heart. Tell me, young Finn, do you believe in the White Luna? What do you believe Isla Thornawood is who the moon goddess says she is? Not just a powerful wolf, but a divine instrument meant to protect and guide our kind. Finn thought of Isla working patrols without complaint, risking herself to save civilians, sacrificing herself to spare Kieran. Yes, he said firmly. I believe. Then believe she has a plan. Mora's ancient eyes held certainty that defied logic. The White Luna has been trapped, compressed, forced into submission. But light cannot be truly contained, only redirected. At midnight, when the blood moon rises and Shadow thinks it has won, Isla will do what White Lunas have always done. What's that? Transform the world. Mora squeezed his shoulder. Hold the line, young warrior. Give her the time she needs. And when midnight comes, be ready for miracles or apocalypse, because we're about to witness one or the other. She walked away, then moving through the battlefield with impossible calm, touching warriors as she passed. Each wolf she touched seemed to stand straighter, fight harder, as if her belief in Isla's eventual triumph was a tangible thing that could be transferred. Finn turned back to his squad, his exhaustion burned away by renewed purpose. You heard the elder. We hold this line. For Isla, for the pack, for every wolf who believes light is stronger than shadow. His warriors rallied, throwing themselves back into battle with renewed ferocity. The rogues continued their assault, But now, Crescent Valley's defenders met them with something more than desperation. They met them with faith. In the dungeons, Celeste paced her cell like a caged beast, her corrupted senses detecting the building power in the council chamber above. "It's almost time," she murmured to the shadows that clung to her like living things. "My faithful Thorn is preparing the ritual. Soon the barriers will fall, and I'll be freed to take my rightful place as queen of a new order." But even as she spoke, doubt nodded at her. The plan had been perfect. 30 decoy totems to keep the White Luna busy, while the real ritual prepared in plain sight. Thorn capturing Kieran as leverage, the rogue attacks distracting the pack's defenders. Everything had gone according to plan. So why did it feel like they'd made a terrible mistake? Because you underestimated her. A traitorous voice whispered in the back of Celeste's mind, just like you always did. You saw the colorless daughter and assumed she'd always be weak. You saw the White Luna and assumed divine blessing was just power without purpose. But Isla was never weak. She was patient, and now she's at the center of your ritual, compressed and contained and waiting to explode. Celeste's pacing stopped. Dread crystallized in her chest, a feeling so foreign after months of shadow-given confidence that it took her a moment to recognize it. "No," she breathed. "Thorn wouldn't be that foolish. He knows you can't trap divine light. He knows. He knows shadow magic and arrogance. The voice said he doesn't know your sister, doesn't understand that Isla has spent 18 years being underestimated, compressed, forced into shapes too small for what she carried inside. He's built a bomb and he doesn't even realize it." Celeste lunged at the bars of her cell, gripping them so hard they bent beneath her shadow and enhanced strength. "Guards!" she screamed. "Guards! Someone needs to stop the ritual." Now before, but there were no guards. They'd all been pulled to defend against the rogue attacks, leaving the dungeons virtually undefended. Celeste slammed her fists against the bars in impotent fury, watching shadows gather in the corners of her cell. Shadows that no longer felt like allies, but like executioners preparing to collect a debt she couldn't pay. "You stupid girl," Celeste whispered, though whether she meant herself or Isla she couldn't say. "What have you done?" Midnight approached with inexorable certainty. The blood moon began its rise, a massive red orb that painted the world in shades of crimson and shadow. Across Packlands, wolves looked up at that ominous sight and shuddered with primal fear. Blood moons came once in a generation, and they always heralded change. In the council chamber, Thorn completed the final preparations. He'd brought in 12 corrupted wolves to serve as witnesses and power sources, their shadow-touched essence feeding into the ritual, amplifying its strength. Counselor Thorn himself had transformed fully now, abandoning any pretense of his original wolf form. He was pure shadow given shape, massive and terrible, his very presence causing the air to shimmer with dark energy. And at the center of the ritual circle, still bound by shadow chains, knelt Isa's white wolf form. "It's time," Thorn announced, his multi-layered voice resonating through the chamber. The blood moon rises. The barriers weaken, and the White Luna's light will be consumed to fuel Shadow's eternal reign. He raised his clawed hands, and the 7 totems flared to life. Power surged through the ritual circle, dark, ancient, wrong in every way that mattered. The shadow chains tightened around Isla, forcing her wolf form to bow lower, compressing her divine essence. Isa felt the ritual activate, felt the totems beginning to drain her light to consume the divine power the moon goddess had placed in her, and she let them. Now, her wolf asked, "Not yet. Let them commit fully. Let them think they've won." The draining continued. Shadow corruption flooding into Isla's essence, trying to extinguish her light from within. It was agony, like being torn apart at the molecular level, like having her soul shredded and consumed. But through the pain, Isla held on to one critical truth. Light wasn't the absence of darkness. Light was transformation. Energy that could change forms, could be redirected, could become something new when compressed beyond normal limits. The moon goddess hadn't given her power to dominate. She'd given her power to transform. Yes. Thorn roared as the ritual reached its peak. Feel the white luna's light being consumed. Feel the barriers crumbling. The shadow army approaches. I can sense them on the other side, waiting to pour through. The council chamber's walls began to crack. Reality itself was fracturing, thin places where the barrier between worlds had worn dangerously weak. Through those cracks, Isla could see things moving, shadow entities eager to cross over and feast on living wolves. It's done, Thorn breathed in triumph. The white luna is extinguished, shadow reigns eternal, and I will be remembered as the wolf who brought down divine light itself. Not quite. Isa's voice rang out not from her wolf form, but from somewhere deeper. Somewhere that transcended physical form entirely. The shadow chains shattered, not because Isla broke them, but because the power they were trying to contain had transformed into something they could no longer hold. Isa's wolf form dissolved, not shifting back to human, but ascending into something else, something that had no name in the language of wolves. Pure divine light, given consciousness and purpose, compressed beyond normal limits, and then allowed to expand in an explosive release. The white luna fully manifest for the first time in 500 years. No. Thorn's voice held fear for the first time. This isn't possible. You should be consumed. You should be transformed. Isa's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. You tried to extinguish light by surrounding it with shadow. But shadow can't extinguish light. It can only define it, give it shape and purpose. You didn't consume me, Thorn. You completed me. Light exploded from the ritual circle. Not the soft glow of normal divine blessing, but something fierce and purifying. Where it touched the 7 totems, they didn't just shatter, they were unmade. Their shadow corruption burned away so thoroughly that not even dust remained. Where it touched the corrupted wolves, it gave them a choice. Release the shadow they'd embraced, or be consumed by light that would burn corruption from their very souls. Most chose release. The shadow drained from their eyes, from their forms, leaving them weak and gasping but alive and clean. Thorn chose to fight. I am shadow incarnate, he roared, his massive form lunging at the light that had been Isa. I have drunk from the source of eternal darkness. I cannot be. The light enveloped him, and he screamed, not in pain, but in recognition of a truth he'd been denying. Shadow wasn't eternal. It was just the absence of light. And in the presence of true divine radiance, absence couldn't exist. Thorn's shadow form burned away layer by layer, revealing the elderly counselor beneath the wolf he'd been before corruption. Scared and small and so very mortal, he collapsed to the stone floor, gasping as the last of the shadow drained from his body. I only wanted to matter, Thorn whispered. To be important, to be remembered. You will be. Isla's voice was gentle despite everything, as a lesson, as a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition outweighs wisdom. But you'll be alive to learn from it. If you choose, then the light expanded beyond the council chamber, flooding out across Packlands. Everywhere it touched, shadow corruption burned away. The totems hidden in the forest found and destroyed instantaneously. The rogues attacking the southern border cleansed of corruption or driven back across territory lines. The cracks in reality where the barrier had thinned sealed shut so thoroughly that shadow entities would never find them again. In less than a minute, Isa's fully manifested divine power had accomplished what would have taken the entire pack weeks of fighting. She'd saved them, all of them, in one explosive release of light that transformed everything it touched. Slowly, gradually, Isa's consciousness condensed back into physical form. She stood in the center of the ritual circle, human again, naked and exhausted, but whole. The 7 totems were gone. The shadow chains were dust and surrounding her, Wolves were staring in awe, fear, and something that might have been worship. Isa. Kieran's voice broke the silence. The alpha had returned, his wounds bandaged, his expression showing disbelief. What? What did you just do? What I was always meant to do, Ela said quietly. Her silver hair seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight streaming through the broken walls. I transformed. I became what I needed to be to save our pack. The barriers, Captain Vera said from the doorway, her weathered face showing shock. They're not just sealed, they're reinforced, stronger than they've been in generations. And the rogues, those that survived your light, they're fleeing, running as fast as they can away from our territory. The shadow corruption is cleansed, Grandmother Mora announced, entering the chamber with surprising energy for her age. I can feel it. Every totem destroyed, every corrupted wolf given the choice to release their darkness. Child, she approached Isla, tears streaming down her ancient face. You did what the last white Luna couldn't. You used your power not to dominate, but to heal, not to conquer, but to protect. At what cost? Isla looked down at her hands, which still glowed faintly with divine energy. I'm not. I don't feel human anymore. I don't feel like a normal wolf. I feel like something else, something apart. You are apart, Finn said, pushing through the crowd to stand before her. You're the white Luna, fully manifest, but you're also still Isa. Still the girl who worked kitchens and patrols without complaint. Still the wolf who chose service over domination, protection over conquest. He held out his hand. You're different, but you're still you, and that's what matters. Isa looked at his offered hand, then at the wolves surrounding her. Some looked afraid, others looked grateful. Most looked confused. Trying to reconcile the colorless daughter they dismissed with the divine being who just saved their lives. The pack vote, Isla said quietly. It was supposed to happen tomorrow. A vote on whether I should be granted full membership and recognition as Luna. I don't think a vote is necessary anymore. Kieran said something like humor, touching his exhausted face. You just saved every life in Crescent Valley. You cleansed shadow corruption that's been building for months. You reinforced our barriers and drove off enemies we couldn't defeat through conventional battle. If that doesn't earn you acceptance, nothing will. But I want the vote anyway. Isa's voice was firm because I don't want worship. I don't want submission born from fear or gratitude. I want choice. I want every wolf in this pack to decide for themselves if they can accept me not as a divine savior, but as a pack member who happens to carry unusual power. Silence fell over the chamber as wolves processed her words. Then Finn spoke. I vote yes. Isa Thornwood should be granted full pack membership and recognized as our Luna. I vote yes, Captain Vera added. Yes, Grandmother Mora said firmly. One by one, voices joined the chorus. Not all of them there were holdouts. Wolves too fearful or too traditional to accept a white Luna's place among them, but the majority spoke clearly. Yes, yes, yes. Then it's settled, Kieran announced. By pack vote and alpha decree, Isa Thornwood is recognized as a full member of Crescent Valley Pack, and more than that, he met Isa's eyes. She is recognized as our Luna, not through political maneuvering or forced submission, but through action and choice. She has earned what Celeste tried to take. She has proven her worth beyond any question. Isa felt something settle in her chest. Acceptance, finally. Not universal, not without complications, but real. The pack she'd been born into, but never truly belonged to, had finally made space for her. Thank you, she said simply. I promise I will protect you. All of you. With every ounce of power I've been given. I will be the Luna you deserve. You already are, Finn said quietly. The aftermath took weeks to fully resolve. Thorn and the surviving corrupted wolves were tried for treason. Most were shown mercy exiled rather than executed. Given the chance to start over in distant packs where Shadow's influence wouldn't follow. They'd been corrupted through manipulation and false promises. Victims as much as criminals. Thorn himself was executed. His crimes were too extensive, his corruption too deep. He accepted his sentence with strange dignity, acknowledging that death was a mercy compared to living with the memory of what he'd become. Celeste's fate was more complicated. Execute her, many wolves argued. She orchestrated everything. She's too dangerous to let live, but she's still Pack. Others countered. Still Issa's sister, however twisted their relationship. Doesn't she deserve the same mercy we showed the others? In the end, it was Isla who made the decision. She visited Celeste in the dungeons one final time, finding her sister cleansed of shadow corruption, but still beautiful, still defiant. "Have you come to gloat?" Celeste asked bitterly. "I've come to say goodbye," Isla said quietly. "The Pack has voted. You're being exiled, banished to rogue territories, where you'll have to survive on your own strength rather than manipulation and corruption. No Pack will take you in. You'll be truly alone for the first time in your life." "A mercy?" Celeste laughed without humor. "You're giving me a mercy I don't deserve. I'm giving you a chance. The same chance I would have wanted if our positions were reversed." Isa met her sister's eyes. "I don't hate you, Celeste. I pity you. You had everything: beauty, strength, intelligence, and you let jealousy turn it all toxic. You could have been an amazing Luna. Instead, you became a cautionary tale. And you," Celeste said quietly, something like regret finally showing in her expression. "You were always stronger than I wanted to believe. I should have seen it. Should have made you an ally instead of an enemy. Maybe things would have been different." "Maybe," Isla agreed. "But we'll never know. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences just like I'm living with mine." She turned to leave, but Celeste's voice stopped her. "Isa, for what it's worth, I'm sorry for how I treated you, for how I let everyone treat you. You deserved better. You always did." Isla looked back at her sister one final time. "I know, but thank you for finally saying it." Then she walked away, leaving Celeste to her exile and her regrets. 6 months after the Blood Moon incident, Crescent Valley Pack was thriving. The borders were secure, reinforced by divine barriers that would hold for generations. Trade with neighboring packs had increased, with word spreading that Crescent Valley was protected by a white Luna who used her power for defense rather than conquest. Isa had settled into her role as Luna with surprising ease. She worked alongside Kieran to lead the pack, but their relationship remained professional rather than romantic. Neither of them wanted the complications of a mating bond, and both had learned that partnership didn't require romance to be effective. She still spent time on patrols, still worked alongside warriors and healers, and hunters. She'd kept her promise to remain Isa first, White Luna second. The divine power was there when needed, but she relied on it sparingly, preferring to solve problems through wisdom and cooperation rather than overwhelming force. On a clear spring morning, Isla stood at the edge of pack territory, looking out over the forest where Thomas had died, defending the truth. "I miss him," Finn said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "Still, every day, me too," Isla agreed. "But I think he'd be proud of what we've built, of what we've become, the pack that almost destroyed itself through fear and corruption, now led by the wolf they once dismissed as worthless." Finn smiled. "Yeah, I think he'd appreciate the irony." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun rise over lands they'd fought to protect. "Do you ever regret it?" Finn asked, choosing to stay here. With the pack that hurt you for so long, Isa considered the question. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Sometimes I remember every cruel word, every moment of mockery, every time I was made to feel worthless. But then I remember that people can change. Packs can transform, and holding on to past pain only poisons the future." "Very wise, Luna. Don't call me that," Isla said, but she was smiling. "Just Isla is fine. Can't do that. Protocol demands respect for our Luna. Then protocol can." A howl interrupted her, a call for the Luna's presence at the northern border. Not an attack, but something requiring attention. Asa sighed. Duty calls. You love it, Finn accused. And he was right. Despite everything, despite the pain and struggle it had taken to get here, Isla loved being Luna. Loved protecting wolves who'd once feared her. Loved using power for purpose rather than letting it define her. She shifted the transformation smooth and effortless now. And her massive white wolf stood gleaming in the morning light. Race you to the northern border, she projected to Finn with amusement. That's not fair, you're twice my size. Then you better get a head start. They ran together through the forest. Two wolves racing toward whatever challenge awaited, their laughter echoing through trees that had witnessed so much darkness and now stood bathed in light. Behind them, the sun continued to rise over Crescent Valley Pack. And at the center of it all, the colorless daughter who'd been dismissed as worthless had transformed into exactly what her pack needed most. A white Luna who understood that true power wasn't about domination, it was about transformation. And she'd been transforming herself, her pack, her destiny from the very beginning. They'd just been too blind to see it until she forced them to look. As Isla's journey ends, I'm left wondering, is it better to be feared for your power or loved for your restraint? Isla chose to earn acceptance rather than demand submission. But was that wisdom, or was it just another way of making herself smaller to comfort others? What do you think? Comment below. If you had divine power, would you use it to force respect, or would you keep proving yourself to people who should have seen your worth from the beginning? And more importantly, which choice makes you stronger?